The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Warp fields bend spacetime, transporters convert matter to energy and back, and even the most exotic phenomena eventually yield to sensor analysis and scientific inquiry. The Federation was built on this foundation, that reason, logic, and understanding could illuminate any mystery. But what happens when something appears that defies every principle the Federation holds sacred? Not just scientifically, but philosophically. When warriors from a universe where peace is heresy and diplomacy is weakness materialize in a galaxy that has spent centuries proving the opposite? Captain Jean-Luc Picard stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise-D, studying the sensor readings with growing concern. His reflection ghosted across the view screen, a composed figure in Starfleet red, hands clasped behind his back. But his eyes betrayed the unease he felt. "Confirmed, Captain," Lieutenant Commander Data reported from Ops, his golden eyes fixed on the cascading data. The subspace distortion measured 12.3 million terajoules at peak intensity. The energy signature does not match any known phenomenon in our database, not warp core breaches, not spatial anomalies, not even Borg transwarp conduits. Could it be a cloaked vessel? Commander William Riker asked, rising from the first officer's chair. "Negative, sir. The distortion occurred in open space, 14 light-years from the nearest star system. Whatever emerged did so violently." Data's fingers moved across his console. "I am detecting debris fields consistent with a massive structural failure. Hull fragments, ionized metals, and organic matter." Picard's jaw tightened. "Survivors? Impossible to determine at this range. However, I am reading multiple energy signatures consistent with power generation, small scale, possibly personal equipment." Data paused, tilting his head in that uniquely android gesture of curiosity. "Captain, the energy output from these signatures is extraordinary. Each individual source is generating approximately 1.2 gigawatts. Counselor Deanna Troi leaned forward, her dark eyes troubled. "Captain, I'm sensing something. It's distant, but the emotions are incredibly strong. Aggression, determination, and," she hesitated. "Fury. Raw, controlled fury. Distance to the anomaly site, Mr. Data?" 3 hours at Warp 6, Captain." Picard turned to his tactical officer. "Lieutenant Worf, increase to yellow alert. All hands to stations. Riker, assemble an away team, include Dr. Crusher. Whatever's out there may need medical assistance." "Aye, sir." Riker moved toward the turbolift, but Worf's deep voice stopped him. "Captain, I recommend extreme caution. Unknown contacts near the Romulan neutral zone, displaying unusual power signatures. This could be a trap." "Noted, Mr. Worf. But if there are survivors, we have a duty to render aid. Engage." The Enterprise leapt forward into warp, stars stretching into luminous lines. 3 hours later, the view screen displayed a graveyard. Twisted metal fragments tumbled through space, massive hull sections bearing incomprehensible Gothic architecture, buttresses and cathedral-like structures fused with what might have been weapon emplacements. Some pieces were larger than runabouts, others no bigger than isolinear chips. All of it radiated a faint, sickly energy that made the bridge lights flicker. "My God," Riker breathed. "Scanning debris field," Data announced. "Metallurgical analysis indicates an unknown alloy, density significantly higher than duranium, with crystalline structures I cannot identify. The architecture suggests a vessel approximately 4 kilometers in length." He looked up. "Captain, this was a warship. A very large warship. What destroyed it?" Picard asked. "Unknown. However, the damage pattern suggests both internal explosion and external dimensional stress. It is as if the ship was torn apart from 2 universes simultaneously." Troi gasped, pressing her hand to her temple. "Captain, they're closer. The emotions are overwhelming: anger, suspicion, readiness for violence." And something else, contempt. They hold us in contempt, and we haven't even made contact yet. Life signs? Picard demanded. Affirmative. 12 distinct biosigns, bearing 273 Mark IV. They are, stationary, clustered together. Data's fingers flew. Captain, these readings cannot be correct. Each life form registers a mass of approximately 400 kilograms, with core body temperatures of 37.8 degrees Celsius. Their cardiovascular systems are operating at 3 times human baseline efficiency, and I am detecting redundant organ structures, 2 hearts, 3 lungs, additional systems I cannot identify. Worf's hand moved to his phaser. Genetic augments. Not like any we've encountered, Data replied. These beings possess biological capabilities far beyond Khan Noonien Singh or any documented human augmentation. They are, by every physiological measure, post-human. Picard felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. The eugenics wars had nearly destroyed Earth. Genetic augmentation was forbidden throughout the Federation for good reason. But these beings, whatever they were not Federation citizens. They were survivors of a catastrophe, stranded and alone. Open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open, sir. Picard straightened, adopting his most diplomatic tone. This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. We have detected your distress and are prepared to render assistance. Please respond. Silence. The debris field continued its slow tumble. No response, Captain, Worf reported. Captain, Data interjected, I am detecting a power surge from the biosign cluster. It appears to be. The view screen erupted with light. A projectile, no, dozens of projectiles, screamed through the debris field toward the Enterprise. They moved faster than photon torpedoes, trailing spirals of propellant fire. Worf's fingers stabbed controls. Shields up. Evasive maneuvers. The Enterprise banked hard. Most of the projectiles missed, but 3 impacted the forward shields. The bridge shook. Console displays flickered. Shields holding at 86%, Worf reported, his voice containing a note of surprise. Those projectiles were kinetic weapons, solid mass propelled by chemical explosives. Primitive, but traveling at .03 light speed. They fired on us? Riker demanded. Troi shook her head. No, it wasn't an attack. It was a warning. They want us to stay back. Picard's eyes narrowed. Magnify their position. Maximum resolution. The view screen shifted. Among the twisted debris, 12 figures stood in a loose formation on the surface of a massive hull fragment. And, stood, was the only word that applied. They defied the vacuum, the radiation, the absolute cold of space as if such things were mere inconveniences. They were giants. Each stood over 2 meters tall, encased in armor that seemed grown rather than forged. Massive pauldrons curved over shoulders, chest plates bore wolf-head iconography and runic inscriptions. Their helmets were elongated, almost bestial, with glowing red-eye lenses that stared directly at the Enterprise. One figure, larger than the rest, bearing a cloak of gray fur, held a weapon that resembled a combination of rifle and grenade launcher. Skull totems hung from chains at his belt. And as the Enterprise's sensors focused, the giant raised his weapon in a deliberate gesture. The meaning was universal: come closer, and die. My God, Dr. Crusher whispered from the science station, where she'd been reviewing the bioscan data. Jean-Luc, these readings, these aren't just augmented humans. They're weapons. Living weapons. Every system in their bodies is optimized for combat, enhanced muscles, redundant organs, accelerated healing. And their armor, it's powered, providing life support and strength augmentation. They're surviving hard vacuum because their armor and biology are working in concert. Can we beam them aboard? Riker asked. Their armor is generating a low-level energy field, Data replied. It may interfere with transporter locks. Additionally, given their hostile response, I do not recommend attempting to transport them without consent. Picard studied the figures on the screen. Warriors, clearly. Survivors of some catastrophic event, armed and dangerous, viewing the Enterprise with suspicion and readiness for violence. But they hadn't fired again. They were waiting. Mr. Data, biographical analysis. Search all databases, human history, genetic augmentation projects, military super-soldier programs. Working, no matches found in Federation databases. However, the architectural style of the debris suggests a pre-warp civilization that achieved interstellar travel through alternative means. The iconography, wolves, skulls, runic inscriptions, bears similarities to ancient Terran Norse and Gothic cultures, but predates known historical periods by several millennia or post-dates them significantly. They're from another universe, Troy said quietly. They have to be. Nothing in our galaxy could have produced them. Picard turned to his con officer. Ensign, hold position. Maintain shields. He touched his comm badge. Picard to engineering. LaForge, I need an analysis of that debris field. Specifically, how it got here. Already on it, Captain, Geordi LaForge's voice responded. And sir, you're not going to believe this. That subspace tear. It's still there. Barely. It's closing fast, but I'm reading energy signatures that don't belong in our universe. Whatever ripped that ship apart brought it from somewhere else. Somewhere with completely different physical laws. On the view screen, the armored giants remained motionless, weapons ready. Waiting to see what the Federation would do. And Picard realized that first contact protocols had just become infinitely more complicated. These weren't refugees seeking asylum or explorers making peaceful overtures. These were warriors from a universe that might not even have a word for peace. And now they were stranded in Federation space, heavily armed, biologically superior, and viewing everything around them with contempt. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The bridge of the Enterprise fell silent as the two forces, one representing hope and diplomacy, the other forged in endless war, stared at each other across the void. Whatever happened next would define whether this encounter ended in understanding or bloodshed. And Captain Jean-Luc Picard had mere moments to decide how to approach warriors who had just made it abundantly clear that they did not want to be approached. Captain, incoming transmission, Worf announced. Audio only. The signal is crude. They are broadcasting on multiple electromagnetic frequencies simultaneously, as if uncertain which will work. Put it through. Static flooded the bridge, harsh, grating interference that made several officers wince. Then, cutting through the noise, a voice. Deep, resonant, speaking a language that the universal translator struggled to process. Words emerged haltingly, fragments of meaning stitched together from phonetic patterns and contextual analysis. Stand, distance, approach, death. The translator recalibrated. The voice came through more clearly, though still laden with an accent that seemed to drag consonants like grinding metal. Unknown vessel. You will maintain your distance. You will not approach. Any hostile action will be met with total destruction. This is your only warning. The transmission cut off. Riker glanced at Picard. Not exactly friendly. No, Picard agreed. But they're communicating. That's a start. Open a channel, Mr. Worf. Channel open, sir. Picard stepped forward, choosing his words carefully. This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the United Federation of Planets. We detected the destruction of your vessel and came to offer assistance. We mean you no harm. We are explorers and diplomats, not warriors. If you are injured or in need of supplies, we can help. Silence stretched for nearly 20 seconds. Then the voice returned, hard and suspicious. Federation. Explorers. The words were spoken with palpable disdain. You claim peace while your vessel bristles with weapons. Your shields remain raised. You scan us like prey. Worf's eyes widened fractionally, a significant reaction for the stoic Klingon. Captain, they detected our sensor sweeps. Their equipment is more sophisticated than initial scans suggested. Picard kept his voice steady. Our shields are a precaution, not a threat. You fired upon us when we arrived. Surely you understand the need for caution in uncertain circumstances. Another pause. When the voice returned, there was something new in it, not warmth, but perhaps a grudging acknowledgement. You showed restraint. You could have retaliated. You did not. A low sound that might have been a growl. Very well, Picard of the Federation. We will speak. But hear this clearly, we are Adeptus Astartes, Space Marines of the 6th Legion, the Vuka Fenrika, the Space Wolves. We serve the Emperor of Mankind and his Imperium. We do not know this place, this Federation. We do not know you. Until we understand where we are and how we came here, we trust nothing and no one. Approach us without permission, and we will consider it an act of war. Data's fingers moved across his console. Captain, their language patterns are fascinating. The translator has identified roots in Gothic, Norse, and High Imperial, languages that do not exist in our database. Yet the underlying structure suggests human origin, evolved over millennia. Space Marines, Crusher murmured, studying her medical tricorder readings. Warriors. That would explain the biological modifications, their purpose-built for combat. Troy closed her eyes, concentrating. Captain, their emotional state is complex. Anger and suspicion, yes, but also, displacement. Confusion. They're lost, though they'd never admit it. And underneath everything, there's loyalty, absolute, unshakable loyalty to something they call the Emperor. Picard nodded slowly, forming his response. Space Wolves. I am Captain Picard. We understand your caution. We would like to establish dialogue, to help you understand where you are and perhaps determine how you might return home. But this will require trust on both sides. May I ask who I am speaking with? I am Jarl Bjorn Stormwolf, Wolf Guard battle leader of the Iron Pelt Pack. 12 of my warriors survived the warp storm that destroyed our strike cruiser. We are stranded in this void. The admission clearly cost him. Our astropaths are dead. Our vessel is destroyed. We have no way to contact the Imperium or navigate the warp. And we find ourselves surrounded by unknown Xenos technology and ships that move through space in ways we do not recognize. Xenos? Data queried quietly. Aliens, Worf translated, his tone grim. He calls us aliens. To him, we are not human. Picard felt a chill. These space wolves came from a culture that distinguished between human and everything else, and they had just classified the Federation as Xenos. That could mean many things, none of them encouraging. Jarl Bjorn, Picard said carefully, we are human. Many species serve in Starfleet and the Federation, but I assure you, we are all sentient beings deserving of respect and dignity. We believe in peaceful coexistence between different species. The response was immediate and cold. You work alongside Xenos. You allow them authority over humans. You claim this is enlightenment. The word dripped with contempt. Where we come from, such practices led to humanity's near extinction. The Emperor saved us from that fate. Humanity must stand alone, strong and pure, or it will be devoured by the darkness. Riker leaned close to Picard. Captain, we're dealing with xenophobes. This could get very complicated. Indeed, Picard murmured. Then, louder, Jarl Bjorn, philosophical differences aside, you and your warriors are in immediate danger. Your armor may provide life support, but you cannot remain in open space indefinitely. We can transport you to our ship, provide quarters, food, and medical attention. No constraints, no demands. Simply safe harbor while we determine how to address your situation. Transport. Bjorn's voice sharpened. Explain. Data spoke up. Captain, perhaps a demonstration would be more effective than explanation. Picard considered, then nodded. Mr. Data, replicate a small object, something harmless. Mr. Worf, prepare to transport it to the debris field, 20 meters from the Space Wolf's position. Data moved to the replicator. Moments later, he held a small golden sphere. A simple geometric object, inert and non-threatening. Energize, Picard ordered. The sphere shimmered and vanished from Data's hand. On the view screen, it materialized in space near the armored warriors. Several of them immediately raised weapons, tracking the sphere as it drifted in microgravity. That, Picard said, is a matter transporter. We can convert matter to energy, transmit it through subspace, and reconstitute it at another location. We could use this technology to bring you aboard the Enterprise safely. You would not need to breach the vacuum or risk decompression. Silence. Then Bjorn's voice, tight with barely controlled fury, you disassemble matter at the molecular level and claim you can reassemble it perfectly. You would have us trust our lives to this, witchcraft. It is not witchcraft, Data interjected. It is quantum mechanics and Heisenberg compensators. The technology has been in use for over 2 centuries with a safety record of. We do not use such technology, Bjorn interrupted. We will not be disassembled like base components. If you wish to retrieve us, you will send a shuttle. We will board it in our armor, weapons ready. Any treachery will result in your deaths. Picard met Riker's eyes. The first officer shrugged slightly, it was the best offer they were going to get. Agreed, Picard said. We will dispatch a shuttlecraft to your location. It will be unarmed and crewed by 2 officers. They will transport you to the Enterprise. Once aboard, we can discuss your situation in more comfortable surroundings. Acceptable. But understand this, Picard of the Federation, my warriors and I remain armed at all times. We answer to no authority but the Emperor and our chapter. We will follow no laws but the Codex Astartes and our own honor. If you attempt to restrain us, disarm us, or imprison us, we will fight our way free. Are we clear? Picard's jaw set. Perfectly clear, Jarl Bjorn. But let me be equally clear, this vessel operates under Federation law and Starfleet regulations. We will treat you as guests, not prisoners, but we expect you to respect the safety and rights of everyone aboard this ship. That includes species you may consider, Xenos. Violence against any member of this crew will not be tolerated. A long pause. Then, grudgingly, if your people do not threaten us, we will not harm them. You have my word as a son of Russ. But know this, we are warriors, Picard. We have fought for centuries in the Emperor's name. We do not know how to be anything else. Understood. Picard out. He gestured to Worf. Lieutenant, prepare a Type 6 shuttle. You and Lieutenant Commander Data will retrieve our guests. Worf's expression was unreadable, but his tone carried a note of concern. Captain, permission to speak freely. Granted. These space wolves, they remind me of Klingon, but more disciplined. More dangerous. They view combat as their purpose, honor as their code. But they also view us, those of us who are not human, as inferior. Perhaps even as enemies. His hand rested on his phaser. I should go armed. No, Picard said firmly. We're extending an olive branch, Mr. Worf. Going armed would contradict that gesture. Besides, he added with a slight smile, I suspect your phaser would be of limited use against warriors who can survive hard vacuum and shrug off kinetic weapons traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Worf's growl was non-committal, but he moved toward the turbolift. Data followed, pausing at the threshold. "Captain, I find these space wolves fascinating from an anthropological perspective. A human culture that has evolved independently for millennia, developing biotechnology far beyond Federation capabilities, yet retaining ancient warrior traditions and xenophobic beliefs. The philosophical implications are..." "Later, Mr. Data," Picard said gently. "Right now, I need you to help bring them aboard without incident." "Of course, Captain." As the turbolift doors closed, Crusher moved to Picard's side. "Jean-Luc, I need to run full medical scans once they're aboard. Those biological readings, some of those organ structures shouldn't be possible. If they're augmented humans, they're the most extensive modifications I've ever seen. With their permission only, Doctor. We're not going to treat them as lab specimens." "Agreed." "But Jean-Luc," she lowered her voice. "They called us Xenos. They come from a culture where humans apparently rule over or exclude other species. And now they're on a ship where nearly 40% of the crew isn't human. This could go very badly very quickly." Picard watched the view screen, where the armored giants waited among the debris of their shattered vessel. 12 warriors, lost and stranded, carrying weapons and ideology from a universe that might be fundamentally incompatible with everything the Federation stood for. "Yes," he said quietly. "Yes, it could." The shuttle bay fell silent as the Type 6 shuttlecraft Cousteau glided through the atmospheric containment field and settled onto the deck with a pneumatic hiss. The crew members who had been performing routine maintenance stopped their work, tools hanging forgotten in their hands as they stared at the shuttle's viewport. Through the transparent aluminum, 12 massive figures sat in absolute stillness. Even seated, they towered over the shuttle's interior, their armor scraping against the ceiling. Red-eye lenses glowed in the bay's lighting, tracking every movement of the dozen security personnel Worf had stationed around the perimeter. "Mother of God," whispered Ensign Martinez, a young engineer clutching a hyperspanner like a talisman. Lieutenant Barclay, overseeing the bay operations, tapped his comm badge with trembling fingers. "B Bridge, this is Shuttle Bay 2. They're here." On the bridge, Picard straightened in his command chair. "Acknowledged, Mr. Barclay. I'm on my way." Picard out. He stood, tugging his uniform straight. "Counselor, you're with me. Number 1, you have the bridge." "Captain," Riker said quietly, "maybe we should have more security down there. We have a dozen armed security officers, Will. I suspect if these space wolves wanted to cause trouble, a dozen more wouldn't make a difference." Picard headed for the turbolift. Besides, overwhelming force would send the wrong message. "We're hosts, not jailers." Troy followed him into the lift, her face troubled. "Captain, their emotional state is overwhelming, even from here. It's like standing next to a dozen barely contained infernos. The rage, the constant readiness for violence, it's not pathological. It's baseline. They exist in a state of controlled fury. Can they control it? Yes. But it takes effort. Conscious, constant effort." The turbolift descended. Picard allowed himself a moment to consider what awaited him, warriors from another universe, bred and trained for perpetual war, now standing in the heart of his ship. The Enterprise had hosted Klingon, Romulans, even Q. But something about these space wolves felt different. More primal. More dangerous. The turbolift doors opened onto the shuttle bay gallery. Below, the shuttlecraft's hatch was cycling open. Data emerged first, his movements characteristically precise. He stepped aside, and Worf followed, his expression carved from stone. The Klingon's hand hovered near his phaser, though he'd agreed not to draw it. Then the space wolves disembarked. The first warrior through the hatch had to turn sideways to fit, his massive pauldron scraping the frame. He carried a weapon that resembled a rifle fused with a grenade launcher, its barrel ornately decorated with wolf head engravings and purity seals, strips of parchment covered in handwritten script. Skulls hung from chains at his belt, clicking together with each movement. He was followed by another, then another. Each warrior stood over 2 meters tall in their armor, their bulk making even Worf look slight by comparison. Their armor was gray and yellow, marked with battle damage, scorches, dents, and what looked like claw marks raked across ceramite plate. One warrior's armor was painted with intricate knotwork patterns. Another bore a wolf pelt across his shoulders, the fur matted with something dark. The security personnel shifted uneasily, weapons held at parade rest but fingers close to firing studs. The last warrior to emerge was clearly the leader. His armor was more ornate, with additional wolf skull iconography and a cloak of gray fur that fell to his knees. His helmet bore runic inscriptions that seemed to shimmer in the bay's lighting. He carried a massive frost axe in one hand and a bolter in the other, the weapon that had fired on the Enterprise. Jarl Bjorn Stormwolf surveyed the shuttle bay with a warrior's practiced eye, noting exits, cover positions, potential threats. His helmet's eye lenses settled on the security officers, and several of them took involuntary steps backward. Deck plating integrity is sufficient to support their mass, Data reported to no one in particular, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. Approximately 450 kilograms per individual, distributed across reinforced boot soles. Bjorn's helmet turned toward the android. You. The pale one. You are not human. Data tilted his head. That is correct. I am Lieutenant Commander Data, an android, an artificial life form. I am the second officer of the Enterprise. A machine. Given rank over humans. Bjorn's tone was flat, unreadable through the helmet's vox grill. Your Federation has strange customs. Data is more than a machine, Worf interjected, his voice hard. He is a valued officer and my friend. Bjorn's helmet swiveled to the Klingon. Red lenses studied Worf for a long moment. And you are Xenos. Yet you wear their uniform. You serve alongside humans. He stepped closer, towering over even Worf's considerable height. Tell me, Xenos, do you command humans? Do they bow to your authority? Worf's jaw clenched. I am Chief of Security. Humans and other species serve under my command, yes. The Federation does not recognize species as a basis for rank or authority. Merit and ability determine position. Interesting. Bjorn turned away, dismissing Worf as if he were of no further consequence. The casual disregard stung more than outright hostility would have. Where is this Picard? He promised to speak with us. I am here, Jarl Bjorn. Picard's voice rang out from the gallery as he descended the stairs, Troy at his side. He moved with deliberate confidence, refusing to show the unease that Troy's warnings had instilled. As he reached the deck, he had to crane his neck slightly to meet the towering warrior's gaze. Welcome aboard the USS Enterprise, Picard said formally. On behalf of the United Federation of Planets, I extend you our hospitality and our assistance in resolving your situation. Bjorn stared down at him for a long moment. Then, with a hiss of releasing seals, he reached up and removed his helmet. The face beneath was brutal and weathered, as if carved from stone by a dull blade. Scars crisscrossed his features, a puckered line across his jaw, another bisecting his left eyebrow. His hair was long and gray blonde, bound in warrior braids decorated with small metal rings. His eyes were the pale blue of glacial ice, and they held an intelligence that was sharp and assessing. But it was his canines that drew the eye, elongated, almost lupin. When he spoke, they were clearly visible. Picard. Bjorn's voice, unfiltered by the helmet's vox system, was surprisingly human. Deep, accented, but human. You keep your word. That speaks well of you. He gestured to his warriors, and one by one, they removed their helmets. Each face told a story of violence. Scars, ritual markings, elongated canines, and eyes that held the weight of centuries. Some had gray hair despite faces that appeared middle-aged. Others had runes tattooed on their shaved scalps. One warrior's face was so heavily scarred that his features were barely recognizable as human. Troy gasped softly. "Captain, I can feel them now, their emotions are even stronger without the helmets." "It's... Captain, they're old. Not physically, but experientially. These warriors have lived for hundreds of years." Bjorn's enhanced hearing caught her whisper. "The counselor speaks truth. I have served the Emperor for 347 years. Some of my pack are older. We do not age as baseline humans do. The gene seed grants us extended life, among other gifts." He looked back at Picard. "Now. You promised explanations. Where are we? How did we come to be in this place?" Picard gestured toward the turbolift. "Perhaps we should retire to a conference room. I can explain what we know, and you can share what information you're comfortable providing. My chief engineer believes your ship passed through a dimensional rift, a tear between universes." "Between universes." Bjorn repeated the words slowly, as if testing them. "Not the warp. Not chaos." "I don't know what chaos means in your context," Picard admitted. "But our sensors detected a subspace anomaly inconsistent with any known phenomenon. The debris from your vessel carries energy signatures that don't exist in our universe. Whatever brought you here, it wasn't a natural occurrence." One of the other space wolves, his armor decorated with elaborate knotwork, spoke for the first time. His voice was gravelly, as if he'd swallowed broken glass. "Jarl, if we are beyond the warp, beyond the Astronomican's light," he switched to another language, harsh and guttural. Bjorn responded in the same tongue, and a brief exchange followed. The universal translator struggled, picking up fragments. "No way home, Emperor's will, stranded among." The conversation ended abruptly. Bjorn turned back to Picard. "Very well. We will speak in your conference room. But understand, my warriors remain armed. We do not separate. Where I go, they go." "That presents a problem," Worf said. "This ship has strict regulations regarding weapons in non-combat areas. Guests are expected to." "We are not guests," Bjorn interrupted, his voice hardening. "We are space marines. We do not disarm. Ever. This is not negotiable." The temperature in the shuttle bay seemed to drop. The space wolves' hands moved fractionally closer to their weapons. The security officers tensed. Picard raised a hand. "Mr. Worf, I believe we can make an exception in this case. Given the circumstances." He met Bjorn's eyes. "However, Jarl Bjorn, I must insist that your weapons remain holstered unless we face genuine threat. This ship is home to over 1,000 people, men, women, children, and yes, multiple species. They deserve to feel safe." "Children?" One of the younger-looking space wolves, though younger was relative, seemed surprised. "You bring younglings aboard a warship?" "The Enterprise is not a warship," Picard corrected. "We are an exploration vessel. We carry families because our missions can last years. This is a community, not a military installation." The space wolves exchanged glances. One muttered something that the translator rendered as soft and weakness. Bjorn silenced him with a gesture. "Very well, Picard. We will keep our weapons holstered. But the moment we sense deception or threat, we will defend ourselves. And I promise you, we are very good at defending ourselves." "I don't doubt it," Picard said dryly. "Now, if you'll follow me." As the group moved toward the turbolift, Crusher stepped forward from where she'd been observing. "Jarl Bjorn, I'm Dr. Beverly Crusher, Chief Medical Officer. With your permission, I'd like to conduct medical scans to ensure none of your warriors were injured in the incident that destroyed your ship." Bjorn's expression hardened. "We do not permit examinations. Our physiology is sacred, known only to the apothecaries of our chapter and the priests of Mars." "I'm not asking to examine you physically," Crusher assured him. Just a tricorder scan, non-invasive, no contact required. It would help me understand if any of you require medical attention. We require nothing from you. Bjorn's tone was final. If we are wounded, we heal. If we do not heal, we die in battle as the All-Father wills. This is the way of the Fenris. Crusher looked to Picard, who gave a minute shake of his head. Not now. Pick your battles. The turbolift was far too small for all 12 space wolves, so they divided into groups. Picard, Troy, Data, and Worf accompanied Bjorn and 3 of his warriors, the maximum the lift could hold. The remainder would follow with security escorts. As the doors closed and the lift began to rise, Picard noticed Troy had gone pale. The confined space with 4 space marines was clearly overwhelming her empathic senses. "Counselor," he asked quietly. I'm all right, Captain." But her hands trembled slightly. One of the space wolves noticed. He leaned down, a surprisingly gentle motion for such a massive warrior, and spoke in a low rumble. "The empath suffers. She feels our fury, yes." Troy met his eyes, startled. You know what I am. We have psychers in the Imperium. Mind witches. Those who see beyond the veil." He tapped the side of his head with one armored finger. "You sense emotions, thoughts. It is a dangerous gift." "It can be," Troy admitted. "Your emotional intensity is considerable. We are weapons, empath. Forged for war. What you feel is not madness, it is purpose." He straightened as the turbolift slowed. "I am Sven Ironhide, warrior of the Iron Pelt Pack. If my presence pains you, I apologize. But I cannot change what I am." The turbolift doors opened onto Deck 8. As they proceeded toward the conference room, crew members stopped and stared. A Balian ensign dropped a PADD. A human lieutenant pressed herself against the bulkhead as the space wolves passed, her eyes wide with fear. And trailing behind them all, Picard couldn't help but wonder, what had he just brought aboard his ship? The conference room had never felt smaller. Picard sat at the head of the table, flanked by Riker, Data, Crusher, and Troy. LaForge had joined them via the wall monitor from engineering, his visor's implants gleaming as he analyzed the data streaming across his display. Worf stood near the door, positioned between the Starfleet officers and the Space Wolves. Whether to protect his crewmates or prevent their guests from leaving, Picard wasn't entirely sure. The Space Wolves refused to sit. Bjorn and 5 of his warriors stood on the opposite side of the table, the remaining 6 positioned strategically around the room's perimeter. Their armor scraped softly against bulkheads as they shifted, and the conference room's environmental system struggled to compensate for the heat radiating from their power armor's reactors. "Computer," Picard said, "display tactical overview, grid reference 739. The wall monitor shifted to show a star chart. Picard stood, using a stylus to highlight their current position. "We are here, in what we call the Alpha Quadrant. This is Federation space, an alliance of over 150 member worlds spanning 8,000 light-years." Bjorn studied the map, his expression unreadable. "And beyond your Federation?" "The Klingon Empire to our galactic south," Picard indicated the region. "The Romulan Star Empire to our galactic east. Beyond them, numerous independent powers, some hostile, some neutral. And in regions we're still exploring," he gestured to vast unmarked areas. "The unknown. Only 8,000 light-years?" One of the Space Wolves, a warrior with a top knot and ritual scarring, spoke up. "The Imperium spans 1,000,000 worlds across the entire galaxy. Your Federation is small." "Perhaps," Picard acknowledged. "But we've achieved something your Imperium apparently hasn't, peaceful coexistence between hundreds of species. We've built a society based on cooperation, not domination." "Cooperation." Bjorn tasted the word like poison. "You allow Xenos to dictate human policy. To hold authority over the sons and daughters of Terra. Where I come from, such weakness invited extinction. Humanity nearly fell to alien predators during the Age of Strife. Only the Emperor's vision, humanity united, humanity supreme, saved our species. Riker leaned forward, his jaw tight. With respect, Jarl Bjorn, what you call weakness, we call our greatest strength. The Federation was founded on principles of equality and mutual respect. We've faced threats that would have destroyed us if we'd stood alone, the Borg, the Dominion. We survived because we stood together. The Borg? Bjorn's eyes sharpened. Explain. Data activated another display. The Borg Collective. A cybernetic hive mind that assimilates entire civilizations, stripping individuals of their identity and adding their biological and technological distinctiveness to the collective. They have assimilated thousands of species across multiple quadrants. The conference room fell silent as the display showed images of Borg drones, cubes, and the aftermath of assimilated worlds. The space wolves stared at the screen with expressions ranging from disgust to professional interest. Abominations, Sven Ironhide muttered. Hairtech monstrosities. In the Imperium, such things would be purged with fire. We tried that, Riker said quietly. It didn't work. The Borg adapt to every weapon we use against them. They're relentless, efficient, and nearly impossible to stop. Bjorn's expression shifted, not to fear, but to something closer to recognition. You speak of machines that consume flesh, merge it with technology, strip away the soul. We have faced similar horrors. The Obliterators. The demon engines of the Dark Mechanicum. He paused. Are these Borg influenced by the warp? By chaos? I don't know what chaos means, Picard said carefully. But the Borg operate on principles of logic and efficiency. They seek perfection through assimilation. There's nothing supernatural about them. Everything is touched by the warp, Bjorn said flatly. Your ignorance of it does not make you immune. But if these Borg are as you describe, soulless, adaptive, consuming, then they are indeed a threat worthy of the Astartes. LaForge's voice crackled from the monitor. Captain, I've been analyzing the debris from their ship. The technology it's incredible. The armor plating alone is denser than anything we can manufacture. And the energy signatures I'm reading suggest they were using some kind of faster-than-light travel that isn't warp drive. It's almost like they were tunneling through another dimension entirely. The warp, Bjorn confirmed. The Immaterium. The realm of souls and demons, where physics breaks down and nightmares take form. We navigated using Geller fields to protect us from the entities that dwell there, and navigators, mutants who can see the Astronomicon, the Emperor's psychic beacon, to chart our course. Crusher leaned forward, her medical curiosity overriding her caution. Jarl Bjorn, you mentioned gene seed earlier. And I've been reviewing the bioscan data from the shuttle bay. Your physiology is extraordinary. You have 2 hearts, 3 lungs, organs I can't even identify. How is this possible? Bjorn's eyes narrowed. You scanned us without permission. Passive sensors, data interjected smoothly. The shuttle bay's environmental systems automatically scan all incoming personnel to ensure atmospheric compatibility and detect potential biohazards. It is standard protocol, not a deliberate intrusion. The tension eased fractionally. Bjorn considered, then nodded. Very well. I will explain, though you may not understand. We are not born as we are. We were once mortal men, chosen from the tribes of Fenris, our home world. Through the implantation of gene seed organs derived from our Primarch, Lehman Russ, we were transformed. Enhanced. Made into something more than human, less than God. We are the Emperor's angels of death, created to defend humanity from threats beyond mortal comprehension. Genetic augmentation, Crusher breathed. But on a scale I've never seen. 19 separate organ implants, each one designed to enhance a different system. The complexity of the surgery alone. Our apothecaries have 10,000 years of experience, Bjorn said with pride. The gene seed is sacred, passed down from Primarch to Legion. When one of us falls in battle, the apothecary recovers our progenoid glands, the organs that contain the gene seed, so that new warriors can be created. In this way, we are all brothers, linked by blood and gene legacy stretching back to the Great Crusade. 10,000 years. Riker repeated. Your civilization is that old? Older. The Imperium was founded in the 31st millennium. We now stand in the 41st millennium, the age of the Imperium, though some call it the time of ending. Bjorn's expression darkened. Everywhere, humanity is beset by enemies. Chaos worshippers who have turned from the Emperor's light. Xenos races, the barbaric orcs, the ancient Eldar, the devouring Tyranids. Traitors within our own ranks. The galaxy burns, and only the Astartes stand between humanity and annihilation. Picard felt a chill. This wasn't just cultural difference, it was fundamental worldview incompatibility. The Space Wolves came from a universe where peace was fantasy and war was eternal truth. In the 41st millennium, Picard said slowly, is there any peace? Any diplomacy? Bjorn looked at him with something approaching pity. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Peace is a lie we tell ourselves between battles. Diplomacy is what happens when both sides reload. That's barbaric, Troy whispered. That is survival, Bjorn countered. Your federation has existed for, what, a few centuries. The Imperium has endured for 10,000 years, holding back horrors you cannot imagine. We have earned our cynicism through blood and sacrifice. But at what cost? Picard demanded. You speak of humanity's survival, but what kind of humanity are you preserving? One that views all other species as enemies? One where war is the only constant? The kind that still exists, Bjorn said simply. Tell me, Picard, how many of your worlds have burned? How many of your people have been devoured by Tyranid hive fleets, enslaved by dark Eldar raiders, or corrupted by the ruinous powers? We've faced our share of threats, Riker said defensively. The Borg have assimilated entire worlds. The Dominion War cost billions of lives. Billions? One of the Space Wolves laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. The Horus heresy killed trillions. The fall of Cadia consumed an entire star system. We measure our casualties in worlds, not millions. Your wars are skirmishes. Your peace is the calm before storms you have never imagined. The room fell silent. Picard could see the horror on Crusher's face, the anger on Worf's, the analytical assessment on Data's. These Space Wolves came from a universe so steeped in violence that the Federation's conflicts seemed trivial by comparison. Jarl Bjorn, Picard said quietly, you're in our universe now. Whatever horrors exist in your galaxy, they're not here. Perhaps this is an opportunity, for you to see that another way is possible. That peace, cooperation, and coexistence aren't weaknesses but strengths. Bjorn held his gaze for a long moment. Perhaps, Picard. Or perhaps your universe is simply younger. Innocent. And we have brought you a glimpse of the darkness that awaits when innocence dies. Before Picard could respond, Worf's combadge chirped. Bridge to Lieutenant Worf. Worf here. Ensign Ro Laren's voice was tense. Sir, we're detecting two vessels approaching at high warp. Configuration matches Romulan warbuds. They're hailing us. Picard stood immediately. On screen. Worf, with me. The rest of you, remain here. Bjorn's hand moved to his bolter. Romulans. You mentioned them earlier. Are they hostile? Potentially, Picard said. They're complicated. Secretive, strategic, and they don't tolerate Federation presence near their borders without explanation. Then we should prepare for combat. No, Picard said firmly. We will attempt diplomacy first. That's how we operate. And if diplomacy fails? Picard met the warrior's glacial eyes. Then we adapt. But I'd prefer to avoid a firefight while hosting a dozen genetically enhanced super soldiers armed with weapons my crew doesn't understand. Bjorn's scarred face split into something that might have been a smile. It wasn't comforting. Then let us hope your Romulans are reasonable, Picard. Because if they are not, he hefted his bolter. We space wolves excel at providing alternative solutions. As Picard and Worf hurried toward the turbolift, Troy remained in the conference room, studying the space wolves. Their emotional state hadn't changed, that constant, simmering readiness for violence. But now she sensed something else beneath it. Curiosity. These warriors had spent centuries fighting in a universe where peace was myth. And now they found themselves in a place where peace was policy. They didn't believe it could last. But some small part of them, carefully hidden beneath layers of conditioning and experience, wondered if it could. And that tiny spark of wonder might be the only thing preventing this encounter from ending in bloodshed. The bridge view screen displayed 2 Romulan Deridex-class warbuds flanking the Enterprise at 300,000 kilometers, close enough to be threatening, far enough to avoid immediate confrontation. Their emerald hulls gleamed against the starfield, massive wing-like structures giving them the appearance of predatory birds circling wounded prey. Picard settled into his command chair, his posture relaxed despite the tension crackling through the bridge. Open a channel. The screen flickered, revealing a Romulan commander. She was tall, severe, with the characteristic swept-back hairstyle and pointed ears of her species. Her uniform bore the insignia of a sub-commander, and her eyes held the calculating intelligence of someone trained by the Tal Shiar. Captain Picard, she said, her voice smooth as silk over steel. I am Sub-Commander Selak of the warbird Vokoth. You are dangerously close to the neutral zone, and our sensors detected unusual weapons fire and energy signatures in this region. Explain your presence. Sub-Commander, Picard replied evenly, we responded to a distress signal. A vessel of unknown origin was destroyed by what appears to be a dimensional rift. We are rendering humanitarian aid to survivors. Selak's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. Survivors? Our scans indicate 12 heavily armed life forms aboard your vessel. Their biosignatures are unlike anything in our databases. They are not Federation citizens. No, they are not. They are travelers from another universe, stranded by circumstances beyond their control. We are attempting to help them. How convenient. Selak's tone dripped with suspicion. Federation starship finds mysterious warriors near the neutral zone, and we are to believe this is mere coincidence. Perhaps these survivors are a new weapon you've developed. Or perhaps they are allies you've summoned for some purpose. Riker leaned toward Picard. Captain, the Romulans are scanning us pretty intensively. They're trying to penetrate our shields. Maintain shields but do not raise them further, Picard ordered. We're not looking for a confrontation. Captain, data interjected from Ops, I am detecting a subspace communication burst from the Vokoth. They are transmitting our sensor data, specifically, information about the space wolves, to another location. Possibly Romulus itself. Picard's jaw tightened. The Tal Shiar would be very interested in genetically enhanced super soldiers. Sub-Commander Selak, I must protest this unauthorized intelligence gathering. These survivors are guests aboard my vessel, not subjects for Romulan study. Study? Selak's lips curved into a thin smile. We merely wish to understand the nature of this threat. Surely you can appreciate our concern. Unknown warriors appearing near our borders, armed with weapons that register energy outputs comparable to photon torpedoes, this presents a significant security risk for the Empire. In the conference room, Bjorn's enhanced hearing had picked up fragments of the conversation through the ship's communication systems. He turned to Sven Ironhide. These Romulans sound like they want to acquire us. As trophies or subjects. Let them try, Sven growled. They'll learn why the 6th Legion does not suffer capture. Bjorn held up a hand. Patience, brother. Let us see how Picard handles this. If he can resolve it without bloodshed, it speaks well of his diplomatic skills. If not, he patted his bolter. Then we introduce these Romulans to the Emperor's justice. Data spoke urgently. Captain, I am detecting anomalous subspace fluctuations. The Romulans are activating their cloaking devices. Both warbuds shimmered and vanished from the view screen. Red alert. Picard commanded. All hands to battle stations. Shields to maximum. The bridge lighting shifted to crimson. Klaxons wailed throughout the ship. Captain, Worf reported, his hands flying across tactical, I've lost them. They could be anywhere. They wouldn't attack without provocation, Riker said, but his tone carried uncertainty. Subcommander Selak seemed particularly interested in our guests, Picard said. She may have decided that acquiring a space marine would be worth risking a diplomatic incident. In the conference room, the Klaxons had drawn immediate response from the space wolves. Within seconds, they'd formed a defensive perimeter, weapons ready, moving with fluid precision that spoke of centuries of combat experience. Crusher, Troy, and the other Starfleet officers found themselves in the center of a circle of armored warriors. What is happening? Bjorn demanded. Red alert, Data explained calmly. The Romulan vessels have cloaked. Captain Picard believes they may attempt hostile action. Cloaked. Bjorn's eyes narrowed. They can become invisible. Through a refractive process that bends light and sensor radiation around their vessels, yes. Witchcraft, Sven muttered. Or advanced hair tech. Actually, it is relatively straightforward application of subspace field manipulation, Data began, but Bjorn cut him off. Can you detect them while cloaked? Not reliably. The Enterprise's sensors are among the most advanced in Starfleet, but cloaking technology remains difficult to penetrate. Bjorn's expression hardened. Then they can strike without warning. This is an ambush. He activated his armor's Vox system. All brothers, combat readiness. Unknown hostiles using stealth technology. Rules of engagement, defend the ship if attacked, but hold fire unless fired upon. We are guests here, and we will honor that, for now. On the bridge, Worf's console lit up. Captain, I'm detecting transporter signatures. Multiple inbound. The sentence died as 6 figures materialized on the bridge in columns of shimmering green light. Romulan soldiers, armored and armed with disruptors, appeared in strategic positions. One materialized directly behind Picard's command chair. 2 more flanked the turbolift. The others covered tactical and ops. Nobody move, the lead Romulan barked an accented Federation standard. He was a Centurion, his armor bearing Tal Shiar insignia. This vessel is now under Romulan authority. Surrender your bridge or we will take it by force. Worf's hand moved toward his phaser, but Picard raised a hand. Stand down, Mr. Worf. He turned slowly in his chair, meeting the Centurion's eyes with cold fury. This is an act of war, Centurion. You have violated Federation space and boarded a Starfleet vessel without provocation. We have acquired a potential threat to the Empire, the Centurion replied. The warriors you harbor will be transferred to Romulan custody for interrogation and study. You will not resist. I'm afraid, Picard said icily, that's not your decision to make. The Centurion leveled his disruptor at Picard's head. Captain, I have orders to retrieve these warriors by any means necessary. I would prefer not to kill you, but I will if you force my hand. You won't make it off this ship alive, Worf warned. We have 2 warbuds in position. Your vessel is surrounded. You will comply, or we will destroy you. In the conference room, Bjorn had heard enough. He looked at Data. These Romulans, they have boarded your vessel? Threatened your captain? It would appear so, Data confirmed, monitoring the bridge feeds. 6 armed Romulan soldiers have taken control of the bridge. They are demanding your surrender. Bjorn turned to his warriors. The space wolves were completely still, their eyes glowing with barely suppressed violence. Brothers, he said quietly, it seems our hosts are under attack. These Romulans seek to take us for study, to dissect us like animals. They have violated the sanctity of this ship and threatened those who offered us shelter. Sven's grip tightened on his bolter. What are your orders, Jarl? We are space wolves, Bjorn said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. We protect those who stand with us. We destroy those who think us prey. He cycled a bolt round into his weapons chamber. The Romulans want warriors. Then let us teach them what it means to face the sons of Rus. He activated his Vox link. Picard. This is Bjorn. We are coming to your bridge. Tell your people to take cover. On the bridge, Picard's combadge chirped with Bjorn's transmission. The Centurion heard it too, his expression shifting to alarm. What? The turbolift doors exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. Bjorn had simply punched through them, his armor's servos providing strength that turned reinforced uranium into shrapnel. He stepped onto the bridge like a primordial force, frost axe in one hand, bolter in the other. Behind him, 5 more space wolves emerged, their weapons already tracking targets. The Romulan soldiers spun, bringing their disruptors to bear, but they were far too slow. Bjorn's bolter roared, a sound like thunder compressed into a single, deafening crack. The mass-reactive bolt crossed the bridge in a microsecond and struck the Centurion's disruptor, detonating on impact. The weapon exploded, tearing the Romulan's arm off at the elbow. He screamed and collapsed. The other space wolves opened fire with disciplined precision. Bolter rounds shrieked through the air, each one a miniature rocket designed to penetrate armor, enter the target, and then explode. The bridge filled with the staccato roar of sustained fire and the wet sounds of bodies being destroyed. It was over in 4 seconds. 6 Romulan soldiers. 6 piles of armor and viscera. The space wolves stood among the carnage, bolters still raised, scanning for additional threats. The bridge crew stared in horror. Riker had instinctively ducked behind his chair. Worf stood frozen, his hand still on his undrawn phaser. Even Data seemed momentarily at a loss. Picard rose slowly from his command chair, his uniform spattered with Romulan blood. He looked at Bjorn, his expression carefully neutral despite the shock radiating through him. That, he said quietly, was excessive. Bjorn lowered his bolter. They threatened you. They sought to take us. We ended the threat. He looked around the bridge, noting the expressions of horror. You are not accustomed to violence, I see. In the Imperium, this would be a minor skirmish. Captain, Worf said, his voice strained, the warbuds are decloaking. They're charging weapons. On the view screen, both Deradek's warbuds shimmered into visibility, their disruptor banks glowing green. Sub-Commander Selak is hailing us, Data reported. Audio only. On speaker, Picard ordered. Selak's voice was cold with fury. Enterprise, you have murdered Romulan soldiers. This is an act of war. You will surrender immediately, or we will destroy you. Bjorn strode forward to stand beside Picard's chair. Romulan. I am Jarl Bjorn Stormwolf of the Space Wolves. Your soldiers attempted to take us as prisoners. They have learned the price of such arrogance. If you wish to suffer the same fate, attack this vessel. But know that we will board your warbuds and kill every soul aboard. Silence. Then, incredulously, you would threaten the Romulan Star Empire? I would promise it, Bjorn corrected. We are Adeptus Astartes. We have fought and killed Xenos far more dangerous than you for 10,000 years. Your stealth technology, your weapons, none of it will save you. Withdraw, or die. Choose quickly. Picard stepped forward. Sub-Commander, the warriors aboard my vessel acted in defense of Federation personnel. Your soldiers boarded the Enterprise without authorization and threatened my crew. That said, I do not wish this situation to escalate further. Withdraw your vessels, and we will depart this region. No one else needs to die today. Another long silence. When Selak spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled. This incident will be reported to the Praetor. The Empire does not forget such insults, Captain Picard. Nor does the Federation forget acts of piracy, Picard replied. Safe journey, Sub-Commander. The channel closed. The warbuds held position for another tense moment, then turned and engaged their impulse engines, moving back toward the neutral zone at full speed. Only when they winked out to warp did Picard allow himself to breathe. He turned to face Bjorn. The Space Wolf stood amid the remains of the Romulan boarding party, his armor splattered with gore, utterly unconcerned by the violence he'd just committed. Jarl Bjorn, Picard said slowly, we need to have a very serious conversation about the use of force aboard my ship. Bjorn met his eyes without flinching. As you wish, Captain. But first, you should thank me. I just saved your vessel from capture or destruction. You, Picard said through clenched teeth, just killed 6 people in 4 seconds. 6 enemies, Bjorn corrected. There is a difference. And looking at the carnage on his bridge, Picard realized the terrible truth, to the Space Wolves, there really was. The silence on the bridge stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Medical teams had arrived, but there was little for them to do beyond cleaning. Crusher stood near one of the bodies, or what remained of it, her face pale, tricorder forgotten in her hand. She'd seen combat injuries before, treated phaser wounds and disruptor burns, but this was different. This was brutality on a scale that turned her stomach. Captain, she said quietly, these men they were obliterated. The bolter rounds didn't just kill them. They destroyed them. Bjorn glanced at her. That is their purpose, Doctor. A bolter fires a mass-reactive shell, diamantine tip for penetration, compact rocket for acceleration, explosive core that detonates after penetrating armor. They are designed to kill enemies of the Imperium efficiently. Efficiently, Crusher repeated, her voice hollow. You call this efficient? Would you prefer they suffered longer? Bjorn's tone carried no malice, only genuine curiosity. A clean death is a mercy. These Romulans died before they felt pain. In the wars I have fought, such deaths are kindnesses. Picard stepped between them. Doctor, please coordinate with the cleanup teams. I need the bridge operational. He turned to Bjorn. You and I will speak in my ready room. Now. Bjorn nodded and followed Picard across the blood-slicked deck. Sven Ironhide moved to accompany them, but Bjorn raised a hand. Wait here, brother. I will speak with Picard alone. Jarl, is that wise? These people may. If they wished to harm me, they would have attempted it already, Bjorn said. They had opportunity when we were separated on the shuttle. No, Picard wants to talk. So we will talk. The ready room doors closed behind them, muting the sounds of the bridge. Picard moved to his desk but didn't sit. He stood with his hands braced on the surface, his back to Bjorn, visibly collecting himself. You killed 6 people, Picard said, his voice carefully controlled. On my bridge. In front of my crew. Without hesitation, without mercy, without even attempting to find a non-lethal solution. They were armed and hostile, Bjorn replied. They had seized control of your command center and threatened your life. What other solution would you have had me employ? Picard spun to face him. Stunning them. Disarming them. We have non-lethal weapons specifically designed for situations like this. Phasers can be set to stun, render targets unconscious without killing them. That is what we do in Starfleet. We preserve life whenever possible. Stun. Bjorn's tone made it clear what he thought of that concept. You wish to capture enemies so they can recover and attack again. This seems foolish. It's called civilization, Picard snapped. It's the belief that life, all life, has value. That we don't simply kill anyone who opposes us. That there are rules, laws, principles that separate us from savages. Bjorn was quiet for a moment, studying Picard with those glacial eyes. You believe I am a savage. I believe, Picard said carefully, that you come from a place where those principles don't exist. Where violence is the first solution, not the last resort. And I understand that, I truly do. But this is my ship, governed by my rules. And on my ship, we do not kill unless absolutely necessary. It was necessary, Bjorn insisted. Your crew was in danger. Your vessel was under attack. I ended the threat. You escalated it. Picard's composure cracked. Those warbuds could have destroyed us. If the Romulans hadn't backed down, and they very nearly didn't, we would all be dead. You gambled with the lives of everyone on this ship. No, Picard. I made a promise I was fully capable of keeping. Bjorn moved closer, and Picard realized again just how massive the Space Marine was. He towered over the captain, his armor adding to his already intimidating presence. You say I gambled. But I calculated. I assessed the threat, evaluated enemy capabilities, and determined optimal response. The Romulans would have taken us and likely killed you for allowing it. Your Federation, which apparently values diplomacy above survival, would have been drawn into conflict anyway. I simply resolved the situation before it could deteriorate further. That wasn't your decision to make. Then whose? Bjorn's voice remained level, but there was steel beneath it. Yours. You, who had a weapon pointed at your head. You, whose crew stood paralyzed while enemies controlled your bridge. You value life, Picard. That is admirable. But valuing the lives of your enemies above the lives of your crew is not wisdom. It is weakness. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Picard felt anger surge through him, hot, righteous anger at this warrior who presumed to judge Federation principles. But beneath the anger was something else. A cold, uncomfortable awareness that from Bjorn's perspective, from the viewpoint of a warrior who'd fought for 3 centuries, perhaps it did look like weakness. The Federation, Picard said slowly, was founded on the principle that we are better than our baser instincts. That we can resolve conflicts without resorting to violence. We've maintained peace with the Klingon, negotiated treaties with the Romulans, established diplomatic relations with dozens of species who were once enemies. We've done this not through superior firepower, but through superior principles. And how many times have those principles nearly gotten you killed? Bjorn asked. How many times has your diplomacy failed, forcing you to fight anyway? You mentioned the Borg, the Dominion. Did you negotiate with them? Or did you kill them when they gave you no choice? Picard's jaw tightened. The Borg cannot be reasoned with. The Dominion chose war. But the Romulans also chose war when they boarded your vessel. Bjorn moved to the viewport, looking out at the stars. Picard, I understand you believe in these principles. But I have seen civilizations that believed in peace destroyed by those who believed in war. The Imperium exists because the Emperor understood that some threats cannot be negotiated with. That survival sometimes requires terrible choices. And what kind of life is that? Picard demanded. Constantly fighting, never trusting, seeing enemies everywhere. Is that really survival, or is it just existence? Bjorn was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter, almost reflective. You ask what I have seen, Picard. I have watched worlds burn. I have seen children devoured by tyrannid hordes. I have held brothers as they died in my arms, their gene seed corrupted by chaos. I have fought wars that lasted decades, against enemies who would not stop until every human in the galaxy was dead or enslaved. And through it all, the only thing that kept humanity alive was warriors willing to kill without hesitation. Without mercy. Without the luxury of your principles. He turned back to face Picard. I do not fault you for valuing life. It is admirable. But understand this, in my universe, such mercy would have resulted in extinction. The Imperium is cruel, yes. It is brutal and unforgiving. But it endures. 10,000 years, Picard. Can your Federation claim the same? We're 200 years old, Picard said. But in that time, we've united hundreds of worlds, ended wars, saved billions of lives. We've proven that another way is possible. For now, Bjorn said. In a galaxy that has been kind to you. But what happens when kindness ends? What happens when you face an enemy that sees your mercy as invitation for attack? Before Picard could respond, his comm badge chirped. Bridge to Captain Picard. Picard here. Riker's voice was tense. Captain, we're being hailed by a Klingon bird of prey. They're requesting to speak with you. And sir, they're specifically asking about the warriors aboard our ship. Apparently, the Romulans weren't the only ones monitoring that weapon's fire. Picard closed his eyes briefly. Of course. The Klingon. Warriors who would see the space wolves not as threat or curiosity, but as potential brothers in arms. Or rivals. Acknowledged, number 1. I'll be right there. He looked at Bjorn. This conversation isn't over. No, Bjorn agreed. I suspect it has only begun. But Picard, these Klingon. You said they are a warrior race. Yes. They value honor, courage in battle, glory in combat. Then perhaps, Bjorn said, I will like them better than I like the Romulans. They returned to the bridge, where the cleanup crews had removed the worst of the carnage. The deck plating still showed scorch marks from the bolter fire, and the destroyed turbolift doors had been sealed with temporary force fields. But the bridge was functional. On screen, Picard ordered. The view screen revealed a Klingon commander, male, scarred, with the traditional ridged forehead and long dark hair bound in warrior's fashion. His eyes gleamed with fierce intelligence as he studied the bridge, clearly noting the battle damage. Captain Picard, he rumbled, I am Commander Clag, son of Mrak, of the Bird of Prey IKS PAG. We detected weapons fire near the neutral zone, primitive kinetic projectiles but with remarkable destructive power. The Romulans fled like frightened targs after engaging your vessel. This suggests you have acquired warriors of considerable skill. He leaned forward. I wish to meet them. Picard glanced at Bjorn, who had moved to stand beside the command chair. The Space Wolf studied the Klingon with interest. Commander Clag, Picard said carefully, the warriors aboard my vessel are guests, not. I will speak with him, Bjorn interrupted. He stepped fully into view of the screen. I am Jarl Bjorn Stormwolf of the Space Wolves. You are the first being in this universe who looks like he might understand honor. Clag's eyes widened as he took in Bjorn's massive form, his bloodied armor, the weapons mag-locked to his belt. Then, slowly, the Klingon smiled, a fierce, predatory expression. Space Wolf, Clag said, respect evident in his tone. You are well named. I see the marks of battle on your armor. You have fought recently. Romulans, Bjorn said simply. They attempted to take us. They failed. Clag's laugh boomed through the bridge speakers. The Romulans always overestimate their cleverness and underestimate their enemies. Tell me, Space Wolf, did you kill them honorably? I killed them efficiently. Even better. Clag nodded approvingly. Warriors should be practical, not ceremonial. Captain Picard, I request permission to come aboard your vessel. I would speak with these space wolves properly, not through a view screen. We have much to discuss, warriors to warriors. Picard looked at Bjorn. The decision is yours, Jarl Bjorn. Do you wish to meet with Commander Clag? Bjorn studied the Klingon for a long moment. Yes, he said finally. If nothing else, it will be refreshing to speak with someone who understands that some problems are solved with blades, not words. Picard pinched the bridge of his nose. Somehow, in the span of a few hours, he'd gone from hosting 12 stranded warriors to mediating between them, the Romulans, and now the Klingon. The situation was spiraling beyond his control. And in his gut, Picard knew this was only the beginning. 10 Forward was the largest public space on the Enterprise, designed to accommodate hundreds of crew members for recreation and relaxation. Tonight, it had been quietly cleared of most personnel, Guinan's suggestion, delivered with her characteristic knowing look that brooked no argument. Only a handful of senior officers remained, along with the 12 Space Wolves, and now, Commander Clag and 4 of his Klingon warriors. The contrast was striking. The Klingons stood nearly 2 meters tall, muscular and fierce in their ridged armor, radiating barely contained aggression. They looked like apex predators, and in most contexts, they were. Next to the Space Marines, they looked almost delicate. Bjorn stood a full head taller than Clag, and his armor made the Klingons' equipment seem like ceremonial dress rather than battle gear. The other Space Wolves dwarfed their Klingon counterparts similarly. It was like watching dire wolves meet regular wolves, the same fundamental nature, but operating on entirely different scales. Clag circled Bjorn slowly, his eyes taking in every detail of the ceramite plate, the wolf skull iconography, the purity seals, the frost axe. Magnificent, he breathed. Your armor is a work of art and function combined. What battles it must have seen. 3 centuries of war, Bjorn confirmed. This plate has withstood Lost Fire, bolter rounds, orc choppa, Eldar shuriken, and the claws of Tyranid warriors. It bears my honor marks and the sagas of my pack. One of Clag's warriors, a scarred veteran named Tal, reached out to touch the armor, then hesitated. May I? Bjorn nodded permission. Tal ran his fingers across the ceramite, feeling the density, the battle damage that had been repaired but not erased. What material is this? It is unlike any alloy I know. Ceramite bonded with adamantium on plasteel backing, Sven Ironhide explained. Forged on Mars by the priesthood of the machine god. Each suit takes decades to create and centuries to sanctify. Machine god. Clag's interest sharpened. You worship machines. The Adeptus Mechanicus worships the Omnisia, the machine spirit, Bjorn clarified. We Space Wolves follow different beliefs, we honor the All-Father, the Emperor of mankind, and we remember the ways of our Primarch, Leman Russ. But we respect the Mechanicus for their craft. Clag gestured to Guinan, who had been observing from behind her bar with her usual inscrutable expression. Blood wine. Bring bottles, many bottles. Tonight we drink with warriors. I'm not sure that's wise, Riker interjected from where he stood with Picard and Worf. We don't know how Klingon blood wine might interact with Space Marine physiology. Bjorn snorted. We have the oolitic kidney. It filters toxins and allows us to drink acids without harm. I doubt your blood wine will trouble us. It has felled many humans, Clag warned with a grin. Even some Klingon. Then let us test whether Space Wolves are made of sterner stuff. Bjorn accepted a bottle from Guinan, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He drank directly from it, taking 3 long swallows before lowering it. His expression didn't change. Adequate. Strong, but not unpleasant. We have drinks on Fenris that would melt the lining of mortal stomachs. This is acceptable. Clag laughed and clapped Bjorn on the shoulder, an impact that would have staggered most humans. Bjorn didn't move. I like you, Space Wolf. You drink like a warrior. Now tell me, he gestured to the bolter maglocked to Bjorn's hip. Show me this weapon that drove the Romulans to flight. Bjorn unclasped the bolter, holding it in both hands. It was massive, easily a meter long, with a drum magazine that held 30 rounds. The weapon was ornately decorated with wolf head engravings and kill markings etched into the casing. This is a bolter, also called a bolt gun. It fires self-propelled explosive rounds at hypersonic velocities. Bjorn ejected the magazine, showing Clag the ammunition. Each bolt was nearly 2 centimeters in diameter, rocket-propelled, armor-piercing. The rounds penetrate armor, then detonate inside the target. Against unarmored opponents, the results are decisive. I saw the results on the bridge, Worf said quietly. They were more than decisive. They were devastating. Clag examined the bolter with professional appreciation. This is a weapon of honor. It makes no pretense of mercy. It exists only to kill efficiently. He looked up at Bjorn. In Klingon culture, we say, Qah Gompubo Terra, the blade you fear is the blade that kills you. Your bolter would inspire much fear. Fear is a weapon, Bjorn agreed. The Emperor taught us that enemies who fear you have already lost. One of the younger space wolves, a warrior named Alaric whose armor showed less battle wear than his brothers, spoke up. Commander Clag, we have been told the Klingon are a warrior race. That you value honor and glory in combat. Is this true? It is the foundation of our culture, Clag confirmed. A Klingon's honor is his life. We seek glorious death in battle, not comfortable old age in soft beds. We believe that combat reveals truth, that when two warriors face each other with blades drawn, all pretense falls away and only character remains. Alaric nodded slowly. This philosophy is not unlike our own. We seek glorious death in service to the Emperor. The greatest honor for a space marine is to fall in battle defending humanity. Then we are brothers in spirit, if not in blood, Clag declared. Perhaps this is why the universe brought you here, so that the Klingon Empire might meet warriors worthy of respect. Picard, who had been listening from the periphery, stepped forward. Commander Clag, with respect, the Space Wolves aren't here to forge military alliances. They're trying to find a way home. Home. Clag looked puzzled. Why would warriors of such caliber wish to leave? Here you could win great glory. The Empire has many enemies, the Romulans, the Cardassians, petty warlords in the unclaimed territories. With warriors like the Space Wolves fighting alongside us, we could achieve victories that would be sung about for generations. We have our own wars to fight, Bjorn said, his tone carrying finality. In our universe, humanity stands on the brink of extinction. The Imperium needs every space marine. We cannot abandon our duty, no matter what glory this universe might offer. Duty. Clag tasted the word. Yes, I understand duty. It is the chain that binds honor to action. But tell me, Space Wolf, if you cannot return home, if that path is closed forever, would you consider fighting for a cause here? The Klingon Empire honors strength. We would welcome you as warriors, not as servants. We serve no one but the Emperor, Sven Ironhide said sharply. We are Adeptus Astartes. We do not sell our services like mercenaries. I offer alliance, not employment, Clag corrected. The Klingon do not hire warriors. We fight alongside them. Bjorn held up a hand before tensions could escalate. Your offer is noted, Clag. But premature. We have been in this universe for mere hours. We know nothing of your empire, your enemies, or your wars. Rushing into alliance would be foolish, and Space Wolves are many things, but we are not fools. Clag nodded, accepting the logic. Spoken with wisdom as well as strength. Then let us use this time differently. Tell me of your wars, Space Wolf. Tell me what enemies you have faced, so that I might understand what forges warriors such as you. And Bjorn, perhaps recognizing a kindred spirit in the Klingon's earnest desire to understand combat, began to speak. He told them of the orcs, brutal, green-skinned Xenos who existed only to fight, who grew larger and stronger with each battle, whose technology was crude but effective through sheer belief. He spoke of the Eldar, ancient, arrogant aliens who wielded psychic powers and technology beyond human comprehension, who saw humanity as Monkey, primitives barely worth noticing. He described the Tyranids, extragalactic horrors that devoured entire worlds, consuming all biomass and leaving dead rocks in their wake. The Klingon listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking questions about tactics, weapons, or honorable conduct. The Space Wolves answered, and in return, asked about the Borg, the Dominion, and other threats in this universe. Picard watched the exchange with mixed feelings. On one hand, this was first contact diplomacy at its purest, two warrior cultures finding common ground, building bridges of mutual respect. On the other hand, he was watching a potential military alliance form between genetically enhanced super soldiers and the Klingon Empire. The strategic implications were staggering. Jean-Luc, Guinan said quietly, appearing at his elbow with her characteristic silence. She held a glass of tea, which she offered him. "You look troubled." "I am troubled," Picard admitted, accepting the tea. "These space wolves are dangerous, Guinan. Powerful, skilled, and completely uncompromising in their worldview. And now the Klingon are treating them like long-lost brothers. They are warriors recognizing warriors," Guinan observed. "It's actually quite beautiful, in its way. Two cultures separated by universes, finding kinship through shared values. Shared values of violence. Shared values of honor," Guinan corrected gently. "Don't mistake one for the other, Jean-Luc. The space wolves are violent, yes. But they're not cruel. They killed those Romulans because they perceived a genuine threat, not because they enjoyed it." "How can you be sure?" "Because I've been watching them." Guinan nodded toward where Alaric was demonstrating a combat stance to an interested Tal. "They're professional soldiers, not berserkers. Every action is calculated, controlled. They carry rage inside them, I can see it, the same way I can see Worf's barely contained Klingon fury, but they master it. They don't let it master them." "Until they do," Picard said. "Until something triggers that rage and they can't control it. That's true of any warrior, human or otherwise. Even you carry anger, Jean-Luc. I've seen it when you speak about the Borg, or when you remember what happened at Wolf 359. The difference is training, discipline, and choice. The space wolves have all three." Picard sipped his tea, watching Bjorn laugh at something Clag said, a deep, genuine sound that seemed incongruous coming from such a fearsome warrior. "I want to believe that, Guinan. But I've seen what they're capable of. Those Romulan soldiers were enemy combatants who boarded your ship with hostile intent," Guinan finished. "In war, Jean-Luc, there are no clean answers. Only choices made in the moment with imperfect information. Bjorn made his choice. It happened to be effective. At the cost of 6 lives. Which may have saved 1,000, Guinan pointed out. If those warbuds had opened fire, how many would have died? The entire crew? The space wolves themselves? Sometimes the brutal choice is also the correct one. That doesn't make it easy, but it makes it necessary." Before Picard could respond, the ambient noise in 10 forward suddenly changed. The conversation between Klingon and space wolves had shifted from casual to intense. Clag was demonstrating a batleth form, the curved blade moving in precise arcs. Bjorn watched with professional interest. "Your blade is elegant," Bjorn said. "But impractical against armored opponents. It is designed for unarmored combat, severing limbs, cutting flesh. It is designed for honor combat," Clag corrected. "When two Klingon dispute, they settle it with batleths. The blade requires skill, not just strength." "Skill is important," Bjorn agreed. "But in war, survival matters more than artistry." He unsheathed his frost axe, a massive two-handed weapon with a crackling blue blade that radiated cold. Frost crystals formed in the air around it. "This is a frost axe of Fenris. It carries the winter of my home world in its edge. It can cleave power armor and shatter bone. It is not elegant, but it is effective. Clagg's eyes gleamed with challenge. Perhaps we should test which philosophy is superior, elegance or effectiveness. You wish to duel. Bjorn's tone carried interest. I would not want to kill you by accident, Clag. You seem honorable. I am not so easily killed, Clag growled. But yes, I propose a duel. Not to death, to submission. First blood, or until one of us yields. The holodeck can provide a safe environment, can it not? He looked at Picard. Picard felt the situation slipping further from his control. Commander Clag, I'm not certain that's. I accept, Bjorn said, his voice carrying the weight of decision. He looked at Picard. This is important, Captain. Clag wishes to test himself against me. It is a matter of honor, his honor and mine. To refuse would be insult. Worf stepped forward. Captain, in Klingon culture, refusing a challenge is a grave dishonor. If Bjorn declines, Clag will view it as cowardice. I'm not concerned with Clag's opinion of courage, Picard said. I'm concerned with one or both of them getting killed in my holodeck. We will not kill each other, Bjorn assured him. I give you my word as a son of Russ. This is a test of skill, not a battle to the death. Among warriors, such tests build respect and camaraderie. Picard looked at Clag, who nodded agreement. I swear on my honor, Captain Picard. I seek only to measure myself against a worthy opponent. If the Space Wolf proves superior, I will acknowledge it. If I prove superior, he grinned. Then I will have earned bragging rights for the rest of my life. Riker leaned close to Picard. Captain, maybe we should let them. Better a controlled environment than having them do it in a cargo bay or corridor. Picard closed his eyes briefly, feeling the weight of command settling on his shoulders like lead. Very well. But I'm setting strict safety protocols. And the moment either of you is seriously injured, I'm ending the match. Understood? Understood, both warriors said in unison. As the group moved toward the holodeck, Troy appeared at Picard's side. Captain, I should warn you, both of them are excited. Genuinely eager for this. It's not anger or hostility. It's anticipation. Like athletes before a championship match. That's supposed to make me feel better. Picard muttered. No, Troy admitted. But it might help you understand. For warriors like them, this isn't violence. It's communication. A language they both speak fluently. Picard watched Bjorn and Clag walk side by side, already discussing the terms of their duel, and he realized something unsettling. In the span of a few hours, the Space Wolves had gone from stranded refugees to potential allies of the Klingon Empire. And he had no idea what that might mean for the Federation, for the balance of power in the quadrant, or for the future of this strange, violent warrior culture that had crashed into his orderly universe. One thing was certain, nothing would ever be quite the same again. The holodeck had been programmed to replicate a Klingon arena, a circular platform of dark stone ringed by torchlit columns, open to a simulated night sky. Red sand covered the floor, traditional for honor duels, meant to show blood clearly. The space was approximately 30 meters in diameter, large enough for combat but confined enough to force engagement. Word had spread through the Enterprise like wildfire. Nearly 50 crew members had gathered outside the holodeck, watching through the observation windows. Picard had ordered them to maintain distance, but he couldn't stop them from watching. History was being made, the first combat between a space marine and a Klingon warrior, and everyone wanted to witness it. Inside the arena, Bjorn stood at one end, having removed his helmet but keeping his armor. The frost axe rested in his hands, its blade radiating cold that turned his breath to mist. Across from him, Clag had stripped to his ceremonial armor, lighter than combat gear but still protective. He held his bat'leth in the traditional ready position, the curved blade catching torchlight. The other Space Wolves formed a line along one edge of the arena. The Klingons stood opposite. Between them, Picard, Worf, and Riker watched from a raised platform. "Computer," Picard said, "establish safety protocols. Non-lethal force fields will activate if either participant sustains injuries beyond simulation parameters. Medical override is in effect." "Acknowledged," the computer's feminine voice replied. Clag glanced at the ceiling with disapproval. "Your machine will interfere." "Only if one of you is about to die," Picard said firmly. "Those are the terms. Accept them or the match doesn't happen." Clag grunted acceptance. Bjorn simply nodded. He'd already agreed, and a space wolf's word was iron. Worf stepped forward, positioning himself as referee. "The duel will proceed until first blood, submission, or incapacitation. Dishonorable tactics, strikes to the eyes, groin, or after yield is called, will result in immediate disqualification." He looked at both warriors. "This is a test of skill and honor. Remember that." "Understood," both replied. Worf raised his hand, then dropped it. "Begin." Clag moved first, his Klingon speed impressive as he closed the distance with his bat'leth raised for a diagonal strike. The blade sang through the air, aimed at Bjorn's neck, a strike that would have decapitated an unarmored opponent. Bjorn's frost axe came up in a one-handed block, catching the bat'leth with a metallic clang that echoed through the arena. For a moment, the weapons locked, and then Bjorn pushed, a simple shove powered by centuries of gene-enhanced muscle. Clag flew backward 3 meters and crashed into the sand. The Klingon gasped. The space wolves remained impassive. Clag rolled to his feet, his expression shifting from confidence to realization. He'd felt Bjorn's strength, truly felt it, and now understood the gulf between them. But instead of fear, his eyes blazed with excitement. Again, he roared, and charged. This time he feinted high and struck low, the bat'leth sweeping toward Bjorn's legs. The space wolf stepped back, letting the blade pass inches from his armored shins, then brought the frost axe down in a vertical strike that would have split Clag's skull. Clag rolled aside at the last instant. The axe hit the stone floor and cracked it, frost spreading from the impact point like crystalline fingers. "You're fast," Bjorn observed, genuine respect in his voice. "For your size, you move well." "You're strong," Clag panted, circling. "But strength means nothing if you can't connect." They engaged again, a flurry of strikes and parries that demonstrated both warriors' skill. Clag fought with technique refined over decades, his bat'leth work precise and economical. Every strike targeted weak points, joints in the armor, gaps in protection, areas where ceramite met underlayer. But Bjorn fought with experience measured in centuries. He anticipated Clag's strikes before they came, his enhanced reaction time allowing him to respond to threats that would have caught normal humans off guard. His axe moved with deceptive speed for such a large weapon, and every time it came close to Clag, frost formed on the Klingon's armor. "Your blade carries cold," Clag said, breathing harder now. "A clever advantage." "Fenrisian winter," Bjorn confirmed. "It never melts, never warms. Touch the edge and your flesh will freeze solid in seconds." "Then I will not touch the edge." Clag lunged forward with a complex series of strikes, high, low, reverse grip, spinning slash. The bat'leth became a blur of motion. Bjorn blocked, parried, stepped back. One strike slipped through his guard and scraped across his breastplate, leaving a scoring mark but not penetrating. He countered with a backhanded swing that Clag barely ducked under. "Good," Bjorn said. "You learn quickly." "I have fought many opponents," Clag growled. "None like you, but the principles remain." They separated, circling again. Both were breathing harder, Clag from exertion, Bjorn from the concentration required to fight without killing. For a space marine, pulling punches was the hardest part of training. Centuries of conditioning screamed at him to end the threat, to strike with lethal force. Restraint required constant mental discipline. In the Imperium, Bjorn said conversationally as they circled, "We are taught that the warrior's greatest weapon is not his blade or his bolter. It is his will. His refusal to yield, to break, to surrender even when victory seems impossible. Do your people teach similar lessons? We do, Clag confirmed. A Klingon warrior who surrenders in battle brings dishonor to his house. Death before dishonor, this is our way. Then we understand each other. Bjorn shifted his grip on the frost axe. You have fought well, Clag. Better than I expected. In the Imperium, I would offer you a place in our chapter's auxiliary forces. You have the heart of a warrior. High praise, Clag said, from one such as you. But this duel is not finished. No, Bjorn agreed. It is not. Clag attacked with renewed fury, channeling everything he had into a berserker rush, raw Klingon aggression unleashed. His batleth became a whirlwind of steel, striking from impossible angles, testing every defense Bjorn possessed. And Bjorn met him strike for strike. The sound of metal on metal filled the arena, a staccato rhythm of combat that would have been deadly without the safety protocols. Sparks flew when weapons clashed. Frost spread across the floor where the axe touched stone. Clag's armor showed dents and scoring. Bjorn's ceramite bore fresh scratches. Then Clag made a mistake. He overextended on a thrust, committing too much weight forward. Bjorn saw it instantly, 3 centuries of combat experience recognizing the opening. Instead of striking with the axe, he dropped it, grabbed Clag's extended arm, and used the Klingon's own momentum to throw him. Clag flew through the air and hit the stone floor hard enough to crack it. He rolled, tried to rise, but Bjorn was already there. The Space Wolf's armored boot came down on the batleth, pinning it to the ground. His hand reached down and lifted Clag by the throat, not choking, just holding, and raised him off the ground until they were eye to eye. Yield, Bjorn said quietly. You have fought with honor. There is no shame in acknowledging superior strength. Clag's legs kicked uselessly in the air. His hands gripped Bjorn's wrist, but he might as well have been trying to bend duranium. The Space Wolf held him effortlessly, waiting. For a long moment, Clag struggled. Pride warred with pragmatism in his eyes. Then, slowly, he tapped Bjorn's arm 3 times, the universal signal of submission. Bjorn lowered him gently and released his throat. Clag stumbled back, coughing, then straightened with visible effort. His face was flushed, whether from exertion or embarrassment was unclear. You have won, Clag managed. I acknowledge your superiority. You have nothing to be ashamed of, Bjorn said, retrieving his frost axe. You fought well. Against any normal human, you would have won easily. Against an Orc or Eldar warrior, you might have won. But I am Adeptus Astartes, made for war. It would have been strange if you had bested me. Clag nodded slowly, pride salvaged by the recognition that he'd faced something beyond human. I have learned much. Your strength is greater than I imagined. Your skill exceeds your strength. And your restraint, he rubbed his throat. You could have crushed my windpipe. You chose not to. That speaks to discipline I did not expect. We are warriors, not murderers, Bjorn said. There is a difference. The arena fell silent as both warriors faced each other. Then Clag did something unexpected. He dropped to one knee, his fist pressed to his chest in a Klingon salute of profound respect. Bjorn Stormwolf, you have my respect and my honor. Should you ever need the aid of House of Mrak, you need only ask. I owe you a debt. You showed me the measure of true warriors, and you did not humiliate me in defeat. Bjorn clasped Clag's shoulder, the Space Wolf equivalent of returning the salute. And you have mine, Clag. You faced an enemy you could not defeat and did not flee. That is courage. I would fight beside you. The watching Klingon erupted into cheers, fierce, approving roars that shook the holodeck. The Space Wolves remained silent, but several nodded approvingly. Even Worf looked impressed, though he kept his expression neutral. Picard descended from the observation platform as the simulation faded, returning the holodeck to its standard grid pattern. "Gentlemen, that was instructive. Commander Clag, you fought well. Jarl Bjorn, your restraint was appreciated." "It was harder than the fight itself," Bjorn admitted. "Every instinct screamed to finish him. But that would have been wasteful. Clag is a worthy warrior. Killing him would serve no purpose. Except perhaps to send a message," said a new voice. Everyone turned. A figure stood in the holodeck doorway, tall, lean, wearing the black uniform of Starfleet intelligence. His features were sharp, calculating, and his eyes held the cold assessment of someone who evaluated threats for a living. Lieutenant Commander Dexter Remick stepped into the holodeck, flanked by 2 security officers. But Picard recognized the type immediately. This wasn't standard security. This was Section 31, Starfleet's shadow organization that operated beyond regulation and accountability. "I'm sorry," Picard said, his voice hardening. "This is a private training exercise. You weren't invited." "Captain Picard," the man said, ignoring the rebuke, "I'm Commander Sloan, Starfleet Intelligence. I've been monitoring your situation since the Space Wolves came aboard. And I believe we need to have a very serious conversation about what you're harboring on this vessel." Bjorn's hand moved toward his bolter. Every Space Wolf in the room tensed. The Klingon shifted into combat stances. And Picard realized that the fragile peace he'd been maintaining was about to shatter. "Stand down," Picard said sharply, his voice cutting through the sudden tension. His command was directed at everyone, Space Wolves, Klingon, and the security officers who'd drawn phasers. "All of you. Lower your weapons. Now." Bjorn's hand remained on his bolter. "This one smells of deception, Picard. He arrives with armed guards and speaks of harboring, as if we are contraband." "Commander Sloan," Picard said, his tone cold enough to frost the deck plating, "if you're truly Starfleet intelligence, you'll have authorization codes. Transmit them now, or you and your escort will be confined to quarters pending verification." Sloan smiled, a thin, humorless expression. "Of course, Captain." He tapped a PADD, and Picard's comm badge chirped with an encrypted transmission. "Authorization Sloan 7 Alpha. Clearance level verified through Starfleet Command. I assure you, I'm quite legitimate." Data's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, the authorization codes are authentic. Commander Sloan is listed as Special Attaché to Starfleet Intelligence, reporting directly to Admiral Nakamura." Picard's jaw tightened. Section 31 operated in the shadows, but occasionally they wore official uniforms when it suited them. "Very well, Commander. But you will explain your presence on my ship without prior notification." "Gladly. Perhaps somewhere more private." Sloan glanced at the Space Wolves, the Klingon, and the crew members still watching through the observation windows. "What I have to discuss is sensitive." "The observation lounge," Picard said curtly. "Mr. Worf, Commander Riker, you're with me." "Jarl Bjorn." "I will attend," Bjorn interrupted. "If this concerns my warriors, I will hear what is said." "As will I," Clag added. "The Klingon Empire has interest in these matters." Sloan shrugged. "By all means. The more perspectives, the clearer the picture." Minutes later, they were arranged around the observation lounge table, an uncomfortable assembly of competing interests. Picard sat at the head, Riker and Worf flanking him. Bjorn stood rather than sat, too large for the furniture, with Sven Ironhide beside him. Clag stood as well, pride preventing him from showing weakness after his duel. Sloan sat casually, his fingers steepled, looking utterly at ease despite being surrounded by people who clearly distrusted him. "Let me be direct," Sloan began. "The Space Wolves represent the most significant strategic asset, or threat, that has entered Federation space in decades. Genetically enhanced super soldiers with centuries of combat experience, equipped with weapons technology we don't understand, and possessing biological capabilities that exceed anything in our database. You've been aboard the Enterprise for less than a day, and you've already killed 6 Romulan soldiers and impressed the Klingon. Starfleet Command wants to know what we're dealing with. You're dealing with warriors who wish to return home, Bjorn said flatly. Nothing more. Are you? Sloane leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a military force without allegiance, without nation, without purpose. You claim to serve an emperor in another universe, but that emperor can't reach you here. So the question becomes, what do you do now? We find a way home, Sven growled. And if there is no way home? Sloane spread his hands. The dimensional rift that brought you here has closed. Our best scientists, including Commander LaForge, believe it was a one-time event, impossible to replicate without understanding the physics of your universe. You could be stranded here permanently. The observation lounge fell silent. Picard watched the space wolves carefully. This was the fear they hadn't voiced, that they were truly cut off from everything they knew, everyone they'd served. Bjorn's expression remained stoic, but his hand clenched into a fist. We will find a way, Bjorn said, but for the first time, there was uncertainty beneath the conviction. Perhaps, Sloane conceded. But in the meantime, you're here. Powerful, skilled, and unaligned. That makes you valuable. The Federation could use warriors like you. The Borg are still out there. The Dominion threatens the Alpha Quadrant. And there are other threats that require capabilities beyond what Starfleet typically possesses. You want to recruit them, Picard said, realization dawning with distaste. Section 31 wants to turn the space wolves into operatives. Section what? Sloane's expression remained neutral, but his eyes glittered. I'm Starfleet Intelligence, Captain. We assess strategic assets. And yes, I'm authorized to explore whether these warriors might be willing to assist the Federation in exchange for resources, support in finding a way home, and sanctuary while they search. We are not mercenaries, Bjorn said dangerously. We do not fight for pay or promises. No, you fight for the Emperor, Sloane said. For humanity's survival in your universe. But that universe is beyond your reach. Here, humanity still needs protection. Different threats, same fundamental cause. Why not apply your skills where they can still make a difference? Because they're not your weapons to deploy, Picard snapped. The Space Wolves are guests, not assets to be catalogued and assigned missions. Your approach is insulting and demonstrates exactly why Starfleet intelligence operations need oversight. Sloane's expression hardened. Captain Picard, your idealism is admirable but impractical. These warriors have already demonstrated their capabilities, and their willingness to use lethal force. They killed 6 Romulans on your bridge without hesitation. They've impressed the Klingon to the point where Commander Clag is ready to offer them alliance. Whether you like it or not, the Space Wolves are now a factor in Alpha Quadrant politics. We need to understand them, and ideally, ensure they're on our side when conflicts arise. We choose our own side, Bjorn said. And we do not trust men who speak of us as assets and threats in the same breath. You remind me of the Inquisition, always scheming, always manipulating, always convinced that the ends justify any means. The Inquisition? Sloane's interest piqued. What's that? An organization in the Imperium, Sven explained. They root out heresy and corruption, but their methods are extreme. They sacrifice innocents to save multitudes. They destroy worlds to prevent chaos from spreading. They are necessary but feared. Sounds efficient, Sloane observed. Sounds monstrous, Riker countered. The Federation doesn't operate that way. Doesn't it? Sloane looked at Picard. Captain, you've made difficult choices. You've sacrificed away teams to save the ship. You've violated the Prime Directive when you believed the cause justified it. You've fired on enemies to protect your crew. Don't pretend the Federation's hands are always clean. Picard stood, his voice cold as space. There is a difference between difficult decisions made with accountability and shadow operations conducted without oversight. I've made hard choices, yes. But I've answered for them. Section 31, or whatever organization you truly represent, operates beyond the law, beyond regulation, beyond the principles that define the Federation. You don't get to lecture me about morality. Before Sloane could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Red alert klaxons wailed. Data's voice crackled through the comm system. Captain to the bridge. We are under attack. Everyone moved at once, flooding into the corridor and toward the nearest turbolifts. The Enterprise shook again, a sustained impact that sent crew members stumbling into bulkheads. Report. Picard commanded as he burst onto the bridge. Borg cube, sir. Data's voice was urgent. It emerged from a transwarp conduit 3 million kilometers off the port bow. They are firing. The view screen showed a nightmare, a massive cubic vessel, for kilometers on each side, bristling with weapons and covered in armor that seemed to regenerate as fast as the Enterprise's phasers could damage it. Green energy lances stabbed through space, hammering the Enterprise's shields. Shields at 68% and falling, Worf reported. They're adapting to our phaser frequencies faster than we can rotate them. We need to retreat, Riker said. We can't fight a cube alone. Negative, Data interrupted. The Borg are emitting a dampening field. Our warp drive is offline. We cannot achieve faster-than-light velocity. Picard's mind raced. The Borg. The one enemy that terrified him more than any other. He'd been assimilated once, turned into Locutus, used as a weapon against Starfleet. And now they were back, and his ship was trapped. They're hailing us, Worf said, disbelief in his voice. Audio only. On speaker. The voice that emerged was flat, emotionless, synthesized by 1,000 drones speaking in unison. We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is futile. Then the voice changed, slightly warmer, more curious. Query, biological signatures detected aboard Federation vessel do not match known species. Enhanced physiology, redundant organ systems, augmented capabilities. These will be valuable additions to the collective. Prepare for assimilation. Bjorn stepped forward, staring at the view screen. These are your Borg. The machine flesh abominations you spoke of. Yes, Picard said quietly. And they want you. Your unique biology, your gene seed enhancements, the Borg have detected you and determined you're worth assimilating. Then they have made a grave error, Bjorn said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. We have faced demon engines and hairtech machines that sought to corrupt the Omnissia's works. We have purged corrupted technology with fire and faith. These Borg believe they can take us. He turned to his warriors, who had followed him to the bridge. Brothers. Prepare for boarding action. Standard protocols, establish defensive perimeter, hold key locations, purge all hostiles with extreme prejudice. You can't fight the Borg hand-to-hand. Crusher protested. They'll assimilate you. One touch from their nanoprobes and... We have the oolitic kidney, Sven reminded her. It filters toxins, neutralizes poisons, breaks down foreign substances. If these nanoprobes are biological agents, our bodies will reject them. You don't understand, Picard said urgently. The Borg adapt. They'll modify their nanoprobes, change their approach. Fighting them directly is suicide. Bjorn looked at him with those glacial eyes. Captain Picard. In my universe, we have faced threats that make your Borg seem tame. We have fought for 300 centuries, and we have survived. We are space marines. We do not flee. We do not surrender. We fight. He drew his bolter and frost axe. And we win. On the view screen, the Borg cube advanced, its tractor beam reaching out like the hand of death. And Picard realized he was about to witness either the Borg's most challenging assimilation, or the complete destruction of the warriors who had crashed into his universe less than a day ago. Shields at 40%, Worf reported, his hands dancing across tactical controls. Captain, we have maybe 2 minutes before shield collapse. Transporters? Picard demanded. The Borg dampening field is interfering, Data replied. I can compensate, but beaming is inadvisable until we understand their strategy. The Borg cube filled the view screen, its surface a nightmare of technological horror, conduits, nodes, weapon arrays, and regenerating armor plating that seemed almost organic in its complexity. As they watched, a section of the cube's hull irised open, revealing the green-lit interior. They're preparing to transport, Worf warned. Bjorn raised his Vox grill. All space wolves, this is Jarl Bjorn. The enemy is machine abominations that corrupt flesh with technological infection. Standard purge protocols. Kill zones at all critical junctions. Overlapping fields of fire. No mercy, no hesitation. The Emperor protects, but we are his instruments of destruction. Bjorn, you need to understand, Picard began, but the transporter shimmer was already manifesting across the bridge. 5 Borg drones materialized in a tactical pattern, 2 flanking the command chair, 1 at tactical, 2 at the turbolift entrance. They were human-shaped nightmares, pale flesh interwoven with black mechanical components, one arm replaced by tubular assimilation devices, eyes replaced by cybernetic implants. They moved with eerie synchronization, advancing on the nearest crew members. We are the Borg. You will be. Bjorn's bolter roared. The bolt round struck the lead drone center mass, penetrating its mechanical armor and detonating inside its chest cavity. The Borg exploded into fragments of flesh and metal that scattered across the bridge. Before the others could adapt, the space wolves opened fire. 11 bolters spoke as one, a thunderous symphony of destruction that turned the bridge into a kill zone. Mass reactive rounds tore through Borg drones faster than the collective could compensate. One drone raised its assimilation tubules toward a space wolf and was vaporized mid-gesture. Another attempted to adapt its personal shield and was struck by 3 rounds simultaneously, each detonating at slightly different depths, shredding its internal systems beyond recovery. In 6 seconds, all 5 drones were destroyed. The space wolves maintained their firing positions, weapons trained on the corpses, waiting for movement. When none came, Bjorn lowered his bolter slightly. They die easily, he observed. Are all Borg this fragile? No, Picard said, his voice tight. They adapt. What worked once won't work again. The next wave will be resistant to kinetic impacts. They'll modify their armor, their shields, their tactics. Then we will modify ours, Bjorn said simply. It is the nature of war. Captain, Data interrupted, I am detecting massive transporter activity throughout the ship. Approximately 200 drones have materialized on multiple decks. They are converging on engineering, the bridge, and, he paused. They appear to be actively hunting the space wolves. 40 drones are moving toward 10 forward, where 6 space marines are currently located. They want your gene seed, Crusher said, realization dawning. The Borg have identified you as the most valuable biological distinctiveness on this ship. They're prioritizing your assimilation over ours. Let them come, Sven Ironhide growled. We have held fortress monasteries against demon legions. We have defended hive cities against tyrannid swarms. 40 drones are nothing. Clag, who had remained on the bridge with his Klingon, stepped forward. Space Wolf, you have no obligation to defend this Federation vessel. But if you fight, House Mrak fights with you. My warriors are yours to command. Bjorn looked at the Klingon, respect clear in his eyes. You would fight alongside us against an enemy you have already struggled to defeat? I would die alongside you, Clag corrected. There is no greater honor than dying in battle beside worthy warriors. Captain Picard, Sloane said from where he'd taken cover behind a console, I recommend we evacuate non-essential personnel to the saucer section and initiate separation. The Borg want the Space Wolves, give them the secondary hull and use the saucer to escape. Absolutely not, Picard said coldly. We don't sacrifice anyone on this ship. Even to save 1,000 lives. Even then. Captain, Data interjected urgently, the Borg are adapting their approach. They are no longer attempting frontal assault. Instead, they are accessing our computer systems through hardline connections. They will achieve control of the Enterprise in approximately 7 minutes. Picard turned to LaForge on the monitor. Geordi, can you stop them? I'm trying, Captain, but they're using processing power beyond anything I've seen. It's like they're throwing the computational resources of the entire cube at our systems. I can slow them down, create firewalls, but I can't stop them. Bjorn holstered his bolter and unsheathed his frost axe. The blade crackled with contained cold, frost spreading across the deck where it touched. Then we cut their connection at the source. Where is your engineering section? Deck 36, Picard said. But there are dozens of drones down there. You can't possibly. Captain Picard, Bjorn said, his voice carrying absolute conviction, I am 347 years old. I have fought in campaigns that lasted decades. I have killed Chaos Space Marines, Orc war bosses, Eldar farcers, and things that have no names in any human language. These Borg are dangerous, yes. Adaptive, certainly. But they are not invincible. And more importantly, his scarred face split into a feral grin. They have given me a target. He turned to his warriors. Sven, take half the pack. Clear the route to engineering. Alaric, you're with me. The rest of you establish defensive positions on this bridge and protect the captain. He is our host, and we are honor-bound to defend him. Jarl, one of the younger Space Wolves protested, we should stay together. Pack strength. Lies in flexibility, Bjorn finished. We are not facing a single enemy on a single battlefield. We are fighting a distributed foe across multiple fronts. So we distribute ourselves and trust in our training. He looked at Picard. Unless you forbid it, Captain. This is your vessel. We follow your command. Picard felt the weight of that deference. Bjorn was giving him authority, acknowledging that despite their power and experience, they were guests. It was a gesture of respect that transcended their cultural differences. Go, Picard said. Worf, coordinate security forces. Give the Space Wolves whatever tactical support they need. Data, I want continuous updates on Borg movements. If they start to overwhelm any position, I want to know immediately. Aye, Captain. Bjorn moved to the turbolift, 6 Space Wolves falling in behind him. Clag and 2 Klingon joined them. We fight together, Space Wolf. Today, we write sagas that will be sung in both our cultures. Today, Bjorn agreed, we teach the Borg what it means to face the 6th Legion. The turbolift doors closed. On the bridge, the remaining Space Wolves formed a defensive perimeter. Picard noticed they'd positioned themselves not just to defend against external threats, but to ensure clear lines of fire that wouldn't endanger crew members. For all their brutality, they were disciplined professionals. Captain, Troy said quietly, I can feel them, Bjorn and his warriors. They're not afraid. They're excited. This is what they were made for. I know, Picard said. And God help me, I think we need them. Deck 36 was a war zone. The turbolift opened onto a corridor littered with bodies, both Starfleet personnel and Borg drones. Emergency lighting cast everything in crimson. Plasma fires burned where power conduits had been severed. And everywhere, the sound of assimilation, the mechanical clicks, the collective voice, the hiss of nanoprobes injecting into struggling victims. Bjorn stepped into the corridor, his armor's auto-senses immediately mapping the tactical situation. 23 drones visible, 12 more in adjoining corridors. 18 Starfleet officers down, 7 showing signs of partial assimilation. Engineering entrance 30 meters ahead, currently being cut open by Borg laser torches. Clag, Bjorn said, your people have disruptors. Target the drones cutting through the engineering doors. Alaric, Torsten, suppressing fire, keep them from adapting to our weapons. Sven, with me. We're going through them. Understood, 6 voices replied. The Klingon opened fire first, emerald disruptor beams cutting across the corridor. 3 drones fell, their systems overloaded. The remaining drones turned in perfect unison, already adapting. Personal shields flickered into existence around each one. Shields detected, Alaric reported. Adjusting fire pattern. The Space Wolves switched from single shots to sustained bursts, their bolters tracking independent targets. When shields blocked one round, the second and third struck from different angles, overwhelming the adaptive algorithms. Drones fell, but more were materializing. The Borg cube was pouring reinforcements directly into the area. They are focusing resources here, Torsten observed, cycling a fresh magazine into his bolter. They have calculated this position is critical. Good, Bjorn said. Then we have their attention. He raised his frost axe and charged. What happened next would be analyzed by Starfleet tactical officers for years. Bjorn Stormwolf, 3 centuries of combat experience compressed into superhuman flesh, moved through the Borg drones like a winter storm through kindling. His frost axe cleaved through personal shields, armor, flesh, and cybernetics with equal ease. Each strike left frozen corpses that shattered when they hit the deck. He moved faster than his armor's bulk suggested possible, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge assimilation tubules that would have infected normal humans. A drone grabbed his arm, injecting nanoprobes directly into his armor seal. Bjorn felt them try to penetrate his skin, microscopic machines attempting to rewrite his cellular structure. His oolitic kidney activated automatically, flooding his bloodstream with enzymes that attacked foreign bodies. The nanoprobes died in his veins, neutralized before they could take hold. They cannot assimilate me, Bjorn reported via Vox. Our biology rejects their infection. Press the attack. The Space Wolves surged forward with renewed confidence. If assimilation was impossible, the Borg's greatest weapon was neutralized. Now it was just combat, and combat was what Astartes were born for. Clag fought beside them, his batleth singing as it severed mechanical limbs and heads. He wasn't as strong as the Space Marines, wasn't as durable, but his centuries of Klingon combat training made him a whirlwind of controlled violence. Kapla, he roared. Today is a good day to die. Today, Sven corrected, beheading a drone with his chains word, is a good day for them to die. We will live to fight again. They reached the engineering doors just as the Borg cutting torches broke through. The doors cycled open, revealing the cathedral-like space of the Enterprise's engine room, and the 50 drones that had already infiltrated it. LaForge stood on the upper level, phaser in hand, backed into a corner with 3 engineering staff. Below, drones were connecting to consoles, spreading through the warp core chamber like infection through a body. Geordi. Bjorn's voice boomed across engineering. Get your people out. We will handle this. Bjorn. Oh, thank God, LaForge's relief was palpable. The main computer core is on deck 11. If they reach it. They will not reach it, Bjorn said with absolute certainty. Because we are the line that does not break. We are Space Wolves. And we hold. He raised his frost axe high, and his warriors formed a line across the engineering entrance, 6 armored giants, weapons ready, facing 50 Borg drones. The Borg assessed the situation, ran tactical calculations, and reached a conclusion, overwhelming force required. On the view screen, Captain Picard watched as the Borg cube opened multiple transport apertures. Hundreds of drones began materializing throughout the ship, not in small tactical groups, but in massive waves designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers. They're committing everything, Data observed. The Borg have determined that assimilating the space wolves is worth dedicating the entire cube's resources. Then we use that against them, Picard said, an idea forming. Mr. Data, the Borg are focusing on internal assimilation. Are they maintaining their shields? Negative. Shield power has been diverted to transporters and weapons. The cube is vulnerable to external attack. Tactical, Picard snapped. Target their power distribution nodes. Torpedoes, full spread. Maximum yield. But Captain, Worf said, our people are still aboard. Trust me, Mr. Worf. Fire. Photon torpedoes lanced across space, striking the Borg cube's exposed systems. Explosions rippled across its hull. Power fluctuations cascaded through the massive vessel. And inside, on every deck of the Enterprise, Borg drones froze mid-action as their connection to the collective wavered. In engineering, Bjorn saw his opportunity. Now. While they are disconnected. The space wolves charged into the mass of drones, and the slaughter began. The battle for the Enterprise lasted 3 hours and 47 minutes. When it was over, 238 Borg drones lay destroyed throughout the ship. The cube itself drifted in space, its systems crippled by the Enterprise's sustained assault and the chaos caused by the space wolves fighting inside it. The collective, facing an enemy it could neither assimilate nor overwhelm, made a calculation: the space wolves were not worth the loss of an entire cube. The vessel opened a transwarp conduit and fled, leaving the Enterprise battered but intact. Picard stood in engineering, surveying the aftermath. The warp core hummed steadily, undamaged thanks to the defensive line the space wolves had held. Bodies, or pieces of bodies, littered the deck. Borg drones, torn apart by bolter fire, frozen solid by frost weapons, crushed by superhuman strength. The cleanup would take days. Bjorn stood near the warp core, his armor scorched and dented but intact. His frost axe rested against his shoulder, still radiating cold. Around him, his warriors performed post-battle rituals, checking ammunition, reciting litanies to appease their weapons' machine spirits, and in one case, carving a new kill marking into armor plating. Jarl Bjorn, Picard said as he approached. Your warriors fought magnificently. Without you, the Borg would have taken this ship. We did what we were made to do, Bjorn replied, but there was something in his voice, satisfaction, perhaps. Or validation. Your Borg are formidable. Adaptive, relentless, numerous. In some ways, they remind me of Tyranids, consuming everything in their path, impossible to reason with. But they share the Tyranids' weakness: they are predictable. They follow patterns. And patterns can be broken. You broke them, Picard acknowledged. But at what cost? Bjorn gestured to his warriors. 3 injured, minor wounds that our Laraman's organs are already healing. No deaths. By the standards of the Imperium, this was a bloodless victory. By Federation standards, Picard said quietly, we lost 47 crew members. 23 killed, 24 partially assimilated. Dr. Crusher believes she can reverse most of the assimilation with surgery, but some won't recover. Bjorn's expression softened, barely, but enough. I am sorry for your losses, Captain. In my universe, such casualties would be acceptable. Expected, even. But I am learning that your universe operates differently. You value each life individually, not as statistics in a war report. We do, Picard confirmed. And that's not weakness, Jarl Bjorn. It's what makes us different from the Borg. From the Dominion. From every enemy that sees people as resources to be exploited. We fight to preserve life, not just to win battles. And yet, Bjorn said, looking around engineering, when survival demanded it, you fought as fiercely as any Imperial Guard regiment. You targeted the cube's vulnerabilities while we held the line inside. You used us as the sword while you were the shield. That is sound tactics, Picard. Perhaps your Federation is not as soft as I initially believed. Clag approached, his bat'leth sheathed, his armor bearing new dents and scorch marks. Space Wolf. That was a glorious battle. My warriors and I are honored to have fought beside you. Songs will be sung of this day in the halls of QNOS. And in the halls of the Fong on Fenris, Bjorn agreed, clasping Clag's forearm in the warrior's grip. You fought well, Clag. Your courage did not falter even when facing an enemy that turns the fallen into more enemies. That is true strength. Clag grinned fiercely. The offer stands, Space Wolf. If you wish to remain in this universe, the Klingon Empire would welcome you. Together, we could achieve victories that would echo through eternity. Bjorn was quiet for a moment, considering. Then he looked at Picard. And what of the Federation, Captain? Your intelligence operative suggested we could be assets. Does Starfleet still view us that way? Picard glanced across engineering, where Commander Sloan was conspicuously absent. The intelligence officer had disappeared during the battle, probably retreating to wherever Section 31 agents went when situations became too hot. Commander Sloan does not speak for Starfleet, and he certainly doesn't speak for me. The Federation doesn't collect warriors like weapons in an armory. If you choose to stay, it would be as allies, equals, not as operatives or mercenaries. But would we be accepted? Sven Ironhide asked, stepping forward. Captain, we are what we are. We kill efficiently. We do not hesitate. We view most aliens with suspicion, because in our universe, that suspicion has kept humanity alive. Can your Federation truly accept warriors like us? Picard met his gaze. I don't know, he admitted. The Federation was built on principles of peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. What you represent, what you've shown us today, challenges those principles. You've proven that sometimes, overwhelming force is the answer. That sometimes, diplomacy fails and violence succeeds. That's uncomfortable for us. It forces us to confront aspects of ourselves we prefer to ignore. Then perhaps, Bjorn said, we should return to our universe, if a way can be found. We do not wish to corrupt your ideals. Or perhaps, Picard countered, your presence here is a reminder that ideals must be balanced with reality. The Federation has survived because we've been fortunate, we've faced threats, yes, but we've also had time to develop, to build alliances, to find diplomatic solutions. Your universe didn't have that luxury. You were forged in fire from the beginning. Maybe there's wisdom in both approaches. Data's voice interrupted via combadge. Captain, I have completed analysis of the debris from the Space Wolves' original vessel. I believe I have identified the energy signature of the dimensional rift that brought them here. With sufficient power and precise calibration, it may be possible to recreate the rift. Bjorn's head snapped up. You can send us home. Possibly, Data replied. However, the energy requirements are substantial, approximately 3 times the Enterprise's total power output. We would need to coordinate with Starbase 234 and potentially requisition additional vessels to generate the necessary field. Additionally, there is no guarantee the rift would open to your exact universe. The multiverse theory suggests infinite variations. We might send you to a universe similar to yours but not identical. How long? Bjorn demanded. To arrange the necessary resources and conduct proper tests. Approximately 6 weeks. Perhaps 2 months. 6 weeks. 2 months. For warriors bred for war, accustomed to constant deployment, it would be an eternity. Picard watched emotions flicker across Bjorn's scarred face, hope, frustration, calculation. During that time, Picard said carefully, you would remain aboard the Enterprise as our guests. We would continue exploring, conducting our mission. You would see what the Federation truly is, not just our principles, but how we live them. And when the time comes to open that rift, he paused. The choice will be yours. Return home, or stay here. No pressure. No obligations. Bjorn looked at his warriors. Some nodded. Others remained neutral, waiting for their Jarl's decision. Finally, Bjorn extended his hand, a gesture borrowed from the humans he'd been observing. Agreed, Captain Picard. We will remain aboard the Enterprise. We will observe your Federation. And in 2 months, we will decide whether to return to a universe of endless war, or stay in one that still believes peace is possible. He gripped Picard's hand, careful not to crush bones. But understand, wherever we are, we remain space wolves. We will not change what we are. I wouldn't ask you to, Picard said. The Federation is built on diversity, on the principle that different perspectives make us stronger. Perhaps having warriors who understand war at its most fundamental level will help us better appreciate the peace we've achieved. Or, Bjorn said with a slight smile, perhaps we will learn that there are battles worth fighting that don't involve bolters and blades. Your way is strange to us, Picard. Alien. But, he looked around engineering, at the crew members working to repair damage, helping injured colleagues, treating even the partially assimilated with compassion. But it is not without merit. We will watch. We will learn. And when the time comes, we will choose. Clag clapped Bjorn on the shoulder. While you remain, Space Wolf, House Mrak stands with you. And perhaps, when you leave, if you leave, some of us will go with you. To see this Imperium, these wars you speak of. That would be a battle worth songs. Careful what you wish for, Clag, Bjorn warned. The wars of the 41st millennium are not glorious adventures. They are grinding, brutal, existential. But if you truly wish to see them, he smiled, a predator's expression. Then yes. Perhaps we could find a place for Klingon warriors in the Emperor's service. As the group dispersed, Bjorn and his warriors to their quarters, Clag and his Klingon to their ship, and Picard to the endless duties of command, the captain found himself in his ready room, staring out at the stars. Guinan materialized beside him, as she often did, with 2 cups of Earl Grey tea. She offered him one. You're thinking, she observed. I'm always thinking, Picard replied, accepting the tea. But yes. Specifically, I'm thinking about what happens in 2 months. What if they choose to stay? Then the Federation gets 12 very effective warriors. And risks compromising everything we stand for. Guinan, they killed those Romulans without hesitation. They fought the Borg with enthusiasm. They view violence as a tool, not a last resort. So do the Klingon, Guinan pointed out. So did humans, once upon a time. The Federation didn't achieve peace by denying humanity's capacity for violence, it achieved peace by channeling that capacity into protection rather than conquest. Maybe the Space Wolves can do the same. Or maybe, Picard said quietly, they'll remind us of what we used to be. What we could become again if we're not careful. That's not necessarily bad, Guinan said. Remembering where you came from helps you appreciate where you are. And sometimes, she looked at the stars. Sometimes you need warriors to protect the peace. Not because you want to, but because the universe doesn't always respect gentle intentions. Picard sipped his tea, considering. The Borg had fled. The Enterprise had survived. And in 2 months, he would face a choice that might define the Federation's future, embrace warriors who represented everything they'd moved beyond, or send them home and lose a perspective that might prove invaluable in the conflicts to come. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, he murmured, remembering Bjorn's words. But this isn't the far future, Guinan replied. This is now. And right now, there's still hope. Picard nodded slowly. Perhaps that was the real lesson. The Space Wolves came from a universe where hope had died millennia ago, replaced by grim determination. But here, now, in the Federation's optimistic present, maybe they could learn that another way existed. That peace wasn't weakness. That diplomacy wasn't surrender. And maybe, just maybe, the Federation could learn from them too. That strength wasn't aggression. That preparedness wasn't paranoia. That sometimes, the greatest act of compassion was having the strength to protect what you loved. The next 2 months would tell. On the bridge, Data logged the final casualty reports and initiated repairs. In sickbay, Crusher worked to save the partially assimilated crew members, refusing to give up on any of them. In the shuttle bay, crew members cleaned Borg debris and repaired damage. Throughout the ship, life continued, scarred but unbroken. And in the Space Wolves' quarters, Bjorn sat cleaning his frost axe, the blade's chill a reminder of Fenris, of home, of a universe that seemed impossibly far away. Around him, his warriors performed their rituals, maintaining armor, checking weapons, reciting litanies to the All-Father. But they also talked. About what they'd seen. About Picard's restraint and courage. About Clagg's honor. About a crew that valued every life and fought to save enemies they could have simply destroyed. It was strange. Alien. Wrong by every metric they'd been taught. And yet, Bjorn thought as he sheathed his axe, there was something compelling about it. Something worth considering. In 2 months, they would choose. But tonight, under stars that were foreign but somehow similar, surrounded by allies who were different but somehow kindred, the Space Wolves of the 6th Legion rested. And for the first time since arriving in this universe, they felt something they hadn't felt in centuries. Curiosity about what tomorrow might bring.